My grandmother wrote me out of her will after I came out as trans, so I revealed her affair. I'm 24, trans, FTM, and I came out to my family 2 years ago. Most of them were supportive, but my grandmother, Ruth, 78, was horrified. She's deeply religious, told me I was going to hell, that I was destroying the family name, that she wouldn't acknowledge my delusion. Ruth is wealthy, owns properties and investments worth millions. She'd always told me I was her favorite grandchild, that I'd inherit her estate since I was named after her. My dead name was Ruth. We were incredibly close before I transitioned. Shopping trips, lunches, phone calls daily. After I came out, she cut me off completely, wouldn't return my calls, told other family members I was dead to her. Last month, I found out she'd rewritten her will, leaving everything to my cousin Brandon, who's openly homophobic and barely spoke to her before this. Her lawyer accidentally sent me the old will with a note meant for Brandon explaining the changes. The note said, "Your grandmother wants you to know she's leaving everything to you because you're the only grandchild who hasn't betrayed God and family values. Ruth appreciates your moral character." I was devastated and furious. Brandon getting millions because he's a bigot, while I got nothing after years of being Ruth's companion, felt like a final rejection. Then I remembered something. When I was 16, I'd found letters in Ruth's attic from a man named James. Clearly love letters from an affair she'd had in the 1980s while married to my grandfather. I'd never mentioned them, had actually forgotten about them until now. I went back to Ruth's house while she was at church, found the letters still in the attic, took photos of everything, love letters, hotel receipts, photos of Ruth and James together. Evidence of a years-long affair. I sent copies to Ruth's entire church congregation, to her Bible study group, to all the family members who'd been praising her moral character while shunning me. Within days, Ruth was a pariah at her church. People she judged for decades were now judging her. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Ruth's church asked her to step down from leadership positions. Her Bible study group uninvited her. Family members who'd supported her treatment of me started questioning her moral authority. Ruth called me sobbing, something I'd never heard before. She said I'd destroyed her reputation, her standing in the community she'd spent 40 years building, that I was cruel and vindictive, that whatever our disagreements, destroying her life was evil. I told her she'd destroyed my life first, by rejecting me for being trans, by writing me out of her will, by choosing bigotry over the grandchild she'd claimed to love. That if she wanted to weaponize morality and religion against me, she should have made sure her own past was spotless. She hung up. Several family members called me an asshole, said outing Ruth's decades-old affair was disproportionate revenge, that I'd hurt her far worse than she'd hurt me, that she's an old woman whose reputation I'd destroyed over inheritance drama. But others, including my mom, said Ruth had it coming, that she'd spent years judging people from her high horse while hiding her own sins, that using religion to reject her grandchild while having had an affair herself was peak hypocrisy. Ruth tried to do damage control, claimed the letters were fake, that I'd manufactured evidence. But the affair partner James is still alive, and when contacted by curious church members, he confirmed everything. Said he'd loved Ruth, that their affair had been real and lasted 3 years. The humiliation intensified. Ruth became the subject of church gossip she'd previously been the source of. Then something unexpected. Ruth's lawyer called. Said Ruth wanted to meet, that she had something to discuss. We met at a neutral location. Ruth looked diminished, older, broken. She apologized for rejecting me, said she'd been wrong, that seeing her own secrets exposed made her realize how cruel judgment and rejection feel. She said she was rewriting her will again, restoring me as primary beneficiary, not because of the blackmail or revenge, but because she'd realized that her judgment of me was based on the same self-righteousness that had allowed her to have an affair while condemning others. I didn't know whether to believe her. Asked if she was just doing this to get me to somehow undo the damage to her reputation. Ruth said there was no undoing it, that her reputation was destroyed regardless, that this was about genuinely recognizing she'd been wrong to reject me. 6 months later, Ruth and I have rebuilt a cautious relationship. She uses my correct name and pronouns, has educated herself about trans issues, even joined a PFLAG chapter. She's still facing social consequences at her church. Many people won't speak to her. But she's found a new, more progressive faith community that's welcomed her despite her past. The will has been rewritten. I'm the primary beneficiary again, with provisions that if she dies before we've had at least 2 years of restored relationship, everything goes to LGBTQ+ youth charities instead. She says she wants to ensure she's doing this for the right reasons, not out of fear or manipulation. Brandon is furious about losing the inheritance, has threatened to sue, claims I manipulated Ruth. But the new will was written with multiple witnesses and psychological evaluation, proving Ruth was of sound mind. Some family members think what I did was unforgivable, that I weaponized Ruth's past sins to hurt her. Others think she deserved it, that her hypocrisy needed exposing. Ruth says she's grateful I exposed her, even though it was painful, because it forced her to confront her own moral failings and ultimately led her back to me. She says the affair secret had haunted her for decades, that living with that hypocrisy while judging others had been its own prison. I don't know if I did the right thing. I exposed an elderly woman's decades-old affair out of revenge for being written out of a will. That's pretty dark. But it also exposed hypocrisy that had caused real harm to me, and probably others she'd judged over the years. The inheritance is back, the relationship is healing, but I'll always know I got here through revenge that hurt someone who'd once loved me. Even if she'd hurt me first, even if she'd been a hypocrite, using her secrets as weapons feels morally complicated. But we're here now, building something new from the wreckage of what her bigotry destroyed and my revenge exposed. Maybe that's enough. My stepfather burned my late mother's belongings, so I testified against him in court. I'm 21 years, and my mom died in a car accident when I was 17. She'd been married to my stepfather Greg, 48 years, for 6 years. In her will, Mom left me all her personal belongings: jewelry, photos, clothes, her art collection, family heirlooms from her side. Greg got the house and financial assets, which was substantial. The personal items were specifically designated for me. I was living with my aunt while finishing high school after Mom died, planning to collect Mom's things when I turned 18 and had my own place. Greg said he'd keep everything safe in the meantime. When I turned 18 and went to collect my inheritance, Greg told me he'd cleaned out the house. He'd thrown away or burned almost everything of my mom's. Her jewelry, gone. Photo albums from her childhood, burned. Her grandmother's quilt, destroyed. Art she'd collected, sold or discarded. Family heirlooms dating back generations, all gone. He said keeping her things was unhealthy for his grieving process, that he needed to move on, and having her belongings around prevented that. He'd systematically destroyed or disposed of everything she'd legally left to me. I was devastated. These weren't just objects. They were my only tangible connections to my mom, my family history, irreplaceable items with sentimental value beyond measure. I contacted a lawyer. Turns out what Greg did was illegal. Destroying property designated to someone else in a will is conversion and potentially theft. We filed a civil lawsuit, but Greg's lawyer argued everything was already destroyed, so there was no way to recover actual items, and that emotional value couldn't be quantified for damages. Then, Greg made a mistake. He got into a DUI accident 6 months later. During the investigation, police found evidence he'd been driving drunk repeatedly, including on the night of my mom's fatal accident, the accident that killed her. Greg had been drinking the night Mom died. She'd been the passenger. His drunk driving had likely caused the crash that killed her, but he'd covered it up. I provided everything I knew to the prosecutor. testified about Greg's drinking habits, about things I'd witnessed before Mom's death. The prosecution built a case showing Greg had a pattern of drunk driving that he'd hidden from investigators after Mom's accident. My testimony about his drinking, combined with new evidence from the recent DUI, led them to reopen the investigation into Mom's death. They determined Greg had been intoxicated the night of the crash. He'd manipulated the accident scene and lied to investigators to hide his impairment. My mother's death wasn't just a tragic accident. It was vehicular manslaughter caused by Greg's drunk driving. Greg was charged with vehicular manslaughter, evidence tampering, and providing false statements to investigators. The trial was brutal. I testified about everything: his drinking, his destruction of Mom's belongings, the timeline of events. Greg was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 12 years in prison. Additionally, the judge ordered him to pay restitution to me for the destroyed inheritance, though money can't replace what he burned and threw away. My dad's side of the family, I have a biological father I'm not close with, thinks I went too far, that testifying against Greg was vindictive revenge for him destroying Mom's things, that I helped put him in prison not for justice, but because I was angry about the lost belongings. Some of Mom's friends agree. They say Greg was grieving too, that destroying her things was his way of coping, and that I essentially helped prosecute him for manslaughter out of revenge for that. But others, including my aunt who raised me, say Greg killed my mother through drunk driving, covered it up, then destroyed the inheritance she'd left me, that he deserved prosecution for the manslaughter regardless of my personal grievances. Greg's family has cut me off entirely. They say I destroyed a grieving man's life, that the manslaughter charges were old and shouldn't have been reopened, that I was weaponizing the legal system for revenge over personal belongings. Greg wrote me from prison, saying he's sorry for destroying Mom's things, but that I've ruined his life by testifying. That he's lost everything, freedom, reputation, years of his life, because I was bitter about property. But here's what actually happened. Greg drove drunk and killed my mother. Then he destroyed the inheritance she left me. Those are both his crimes, not mine. 4 years later, Greg is still in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 3 more years. I've had no contact with him or his family since the trial. The destroyed belongings still hurt. I'll never get back my mom's jewelry, the family photos, her grandmother's quilt, any of the tangible pieces of her and our family history. Greg took those permanently, and no prison sentence returns them. The restitution he was ordered to pay is largely theoretical. He has minimal assets after legal fees and won't have significant income until after prison release. I'll probably never see meaningful compensation. But Greg is in prison for killing my mother. That's what matters most. He drove drunk, caused the crash that killed her, and covered it up. Justice for that isn't revenge, it's accountability. Some family members still think I reopened the case vindictively, that if Greg hadn't destroyed my inheritance, I wouldn't have cooperated with prosecutors. That my testimony was motivated by anger over lost belongings rather than justice for Mom's death. Maybe there's truth to that. Maybe I wouldn't have been so motivated to help prosecutors if Greg had preserved Mom's things like the will specified. Maybe my anger about the destroyed inheritance made me more willing to see him prosecuted. But that doesn't make the prosecution wrong. Greg killed my mother through drunk driving. He deserved prison for that whether I was angry about destroyed property or not. My therapist says both things can be true. I wanted justice for Mom's death, and I wanted Greg to face consequences for destroying my inheritance. That these motivations coexisted, and both are valid. I'm 25 now, working, building my life, trying to process losing my mom and all physical traces of her in the span of a few years. Greg sits in prison for killing her. His family hates me for testifying. Some of Mom's friends think I'm vindictive. But my mom is dead because Greg drove drunk. My inheritance is destroyed because Greg burned it. Those are facts, not revenge. Did I pursue his prosecution partly because I was furious about the destroyed belongings? Probably. Does that make the manslaughter conviction unjust? No. Greg made choices. Drive drunk and kill my mother. Cover it up. Destroy the inheritance she left me. I made a choice. Tell the truth when prosecutors asked. His consequences are from his crimes, not my testimony. Some people will always think I ruined Greg's life out of spite. I think Greg ruined his own life by killing my mother and then destroying the only pieces of her I had left. Testifying wasn't revenge. It was refusing to protect him from consequences he'd been avoiding for years. And I'd make that choice again, regardless of how many family members it costs me. My parents faked a family emergency to sabotage my job interview, so I went no contact. I'm 2815F, software engineer, and I'd been working toward a senior position at a major tech company for months. The final interview was scheduled for a Tuesday morning, a virtual panel interview with executives that had taken weeks to arrange. This position would have doubled my salary and relocated me across the country. My parents, 55 male, 53 female, have always been controlling, but they escalated when they learned about the potential move. They guilt-tripped me constantly about abandoning family, said I was selfish for prioritizing career over being near them, that good daughters don't move away. The morning of my interview, I was preparing in my home office when my phone exploded with calls and texts. My dad, my mom, siblings, aunts, uncles, all saying my grandmother had collapsed and was being rushed to the hospital, that it looked serious, possibly a stroke or heart attack. I panicked. My grandmother and I are close. I called the hospital. They confirmed a patient with her name had been admitted. I emailed the interview panel explaining a family emergency, asked to reschedule, and rushed to the hospital 2 hours away. When I arrived, I found my grandmother sitting up in bed, completely fine, confused why I was there. She'd come in for a routine checkup, slightly elevated blood pressure, nothing serious. Certainly not the life-threatening emergency my family had described. I called my parents. My mom admitted they'd exaggerated because they knew I wouldn't miss the interview otherwise. Said they needed to show me that family should come first, that I needed to reset my priorities before making a huge life decision like moving away. They deliberately sabotaged my interview, lied about a medical emergency, manipulated my entire extended family into participating, made me cancel a career-defining opportunity to prove a point about family loyalty. The company wouldn't reschedule, said they'd moved forward with another candidate after my cancellation. The position I'd worked toward for months was gone. I blocked my parents' numbers immediately and haven't spoken to them since. The fallout was immediate and family-wide. My parents told everyone I'd gone no contact over a misunderstanding about Grandma's health. They framed themselves as concerned parents who'd maybe overreacted but had good intentions, and me as the ungrateful daughter who cut them off for trying to help. Extended family members called and texted, trying to mediate. Said my parents made a mistake, but they're still my parents. That I'm overreacting by cutting contact. That families forgive each other. That my career isn't worth destroying my relationship with my parents. But they didn't know the full story. I sent a detailed message to extended family explaining what actually happened. My parents deliberately fabricated a medical emergency, manipulated everyone into lying to me, and sabotaged a major career opportunity because they didn't want me moving away. That this wasn't concern, it was control. Responses were mixed. Some family members were horrified, said what my parents did was unforgivable manipulation. Others defended them, said parents sometimes make mistakes out of love, that I should forgive them and move on. My grandmother was furious when she learned her health had been used as a manipulation tool. She told my parents they'd crossed a line, that she was disappointed in them for using her as bait in their scheme. She's maintained contact with me while keeping them at arm's length. My siblings are split. My younger sister thinks I'm being too harsh, that our parents were wrong, but cutting contact permanently is extreme. My brother supports me, says he's seen their controlling behavior for years and understands why I'm done. My parents have tried everything to restore contact. Letters, emails through relatives, showing up at my apartment building. I didn't let them in. They've apologized for miscommunicating about Grandma's condition, but maintain they had good intentions about making me reconsider the move. They still don't get it. It wasn't about miscommunication. It was about deliberately sabotaging my career opportunity through an elaborate lie involving my entire family. I'm currently job hunting again, looking at positions across the country. My parents don't know where I'm applying or interviewing. I've changed my phone number, limited my social media, and made it clear to family that anyone who shares information about me with my parents will also be cut off. 2 years later, I'm living in Seattle with the job I eventually got. Not the original position, but a good role at a growing startup. My parents don't know where I live. I haven't spoken to them since the day they admitted to faking the emergency. They've continued trying to contact me through relatives. Letters delivered by my grandmother, who refuses to cut me off on their behalf. Messages through my brother. Recently, they've been claiming they're willing to do whatever it takes to repair the relationship. But they've never actually acknowledged what they did. Their apologies are always vague. Sorry for the misunderstanding. Sorry I felt hurt. Sorry things got out of hand. Never, we deliberately sabotaged your career opportunity through manipulation and lies, and that was wrong. My therapist says this is typical of controlling parents. They can't admit to wrongdoing because it would require acknowledging they don't have the right to control their adult children's lives. The vague apologies are about restoring contact and control, not about genuine remorse. Some family members think 2 years is long enough to hold a grudge, that I've made my point, that I should give my parents a chance to prove they've changed, that family is too important to throw away forever. But they haven't changed. They just want me back under their influence. The sabotaged interview taught them I could be manipulated through fake emergencies and family guilt. Going back would just show them that strategy works. My career is thriving. I got a promotion last year. I have a life they know nothing about, in a city they've never visited, with a job they can't interfere with. I'm building relationships with people who respect my autonomy and don't try to control me through manipulation. My parents cost me one opportunity 2 years ago. No contact has protected dozens of opportunities since. That's not revenge, it's self-preservation. Some people will always think I'm too harsh for cutting them off permanently over one incident. But it wasn't one incident. It was the culmination of 28 years of control, manipulation, and refusal to respect my autonomy as an adult. The fake emergency was just the moment I finally stopped accepting it. I'm 30 now, living a life my parents know nothing about, with boundaries they can't cross because they don't have access. They destroyed one interview to prove they could control me. I left entirely to prove they can't. And I don't regret it for a second. My parents gave away my therapy dog while I was hospitalized, so I emancipated myself. I'm 17-year-old Faith, and I have severe PTSD from childhood trauma. Not caused by my current parents, I was adopted at 8. My therapist recommended a psychiatric service dog, and after 2 years of work, I got Luna, a golden retriever trained specifically for my triggers and panic attacks. Luna changed my life. She could sense my episodes before they happened, would do deep pressure therapy during panic attacks, and gave me the confidence to leave the house. She slept in my room, came to school with me, was my constant companion. 3 months ago, I had a severe mental health crisis and was hospitalized for 2 weeks in a psychiatric facility. Obviously, I couldn't bring Luna, so my parents agreed to care for her while I was getting treatment. When I came home, Luna was gone. My parents said they'd rehomed her because having a dog was too much stress during my hospitalization. They'd given her to a family 3 states away who wanted a trained service dog for their child. I was hysterical. Luna wasn't just a pet, she was a medical necessity, a prescribed treatment for my disability. My parents giving her away was like throwing away someone's wheelchair or medication. They said I'd been hospitalized because I was too dependent on Luna, that the dog was enabling my mental illness rather than helping it. They thought removing her would force me to develop real coping mechanisms. My therapist told them this was absolutely wrong, that service dogs are a real coping mechanism, but they didn't listen. I tried to get Luna back, but the family who had her refused to return her, said they'd bonded with her, that their child needed her now. I was devastated and furious. Then I remembered. I turn 18 in 4 months, and my state allows emancipation at 17 with sufficient cause. I documented everything. My parents' decision to give away my prescribed medical equipment, Luna, their dismissal of professional medical advice, the impact on my treatment. I filed for emancipation. The emancipation hearing was brutal. My parents were shocked I'd filed, showed up with a lawyer arguing I was too mentally ill to live independently, that this proved I needed their guardianship. But I had documentation from my therapist, my psychiatrist, and my caseworker all stating that I was capable of independent living with proper support, and that my parents' decision to remove my service dog against medical advice showed poor judgment regarding my care. The judge granted emancipation, said that while I was young, my parents had made a unilateral decision to remove prescribed medical treatment, and that my mental health professionals supported my ability to live independently with appropriate services. I moved into a youth transitional living program. It's not perfect, but it's safe and supportive. I'm working part-time, finishing high school, and working with a lawyer to try to get Luna back, though it's complicated since she was legally rehomed. My parents are devastated and furious. They can't believe I emancipated over a dog, that I've destroyed the family over their parenting decision. They say they were trying to help me, that I'm being ungrateful and vindictive. Extended family is split. Some think I overreacted, that emancipating myself at 17 over a dog is extreme and will make my life harder. Others think my parents' decision to give away my service dog was so harmful that emancipation was justified self-protection. My mom calls crying, saying she made a mistake, but I've cut them out of my life permanently over one bad decision. That they adopted me, raised me, got me therapy, and this is how I repay them, by legally divorcing them. But here's the thing. Giving away Luna wasn't one mistake. It was a fundamental rejection of my disability and my needs. They decided their judgment was better than my medical team's, removed a treatment that was working, and caused a major setback in my mental health. I've had 2 additional psychiatric hospitalizations since losing Luna because my PTSD symptoms are unmanaged without her. My parents created the exact crisis they claimed they were trying to prevent. 6 months post-emancipation, I'm doing okay. The transitional living program is structured and supportive. I'm working, attending school, seeing my therapist weekly. It's hard, but it's mine. I haven't been able to get Luna back. The family who has her legally adopted her and won't return her despite my lawyer's efforts. That loss still hurts every single day. My parents tried to contest the emancipation after the fact, arguing I've had additional hospitalizations proving I can't manage independently. The court rejected their petition. The judge noted that my hospitalizations are related to trauma from losing my service dog, a situation my parents created. I'm saving money to get another service dog, but the waiting lists are years long and the costs are enormous. In the meantime, I'm managing with other treatments, but it's harder without Luna. My relationship with my parents is non-existent. They're not legally responsible for me anymore, and I haven't seen or spoken to them since emancipation. They send messages through relatives saying they love me, that they made a mistake, that they want to repair our relationship. But I can't trust them. They saw me at my most vulnerable, hospitalized for mental health crisis, and their response was to permanently remove my primary coping mechanism against medical advice. That's not love. That's control disguised as concern. Some family members think I'm being too harsh, that my parents made one bad call but still love me and deserve forgiveness, that emancipating myself was extreme and has made my life unnecessarily difficult. They're right that it's made my life harder. Being 17 and fully independent is challenging. Managing rent, utilities, food, school, work, therapy, all while dealing with PTSD. Some days, I'm barely holding it together. But I'm holding it together on my terms, with medical care I choose, with support systems I trust. My parents proved they don't respect my medical needs or professional guidance about my care. I couldn't risk living under their authority, knowing they might override my treatment again. Was emancipation extreme? Maybe. But so was giving away a disabled teenager's prescribed medical equipment while she was hospitalized. They chose to do that. I chose to protect myself from it happening again. I turn 18 in 2 weeks. The emancipation will become moot then anyway. I'll be a legal adult regardless. But I don't regret doing it early. These 6 months of independence, however hard, have been on my terms. My parents didn't just give away a dog. They gave away my safety, my mental health stability, my trust in them as caregivers. Emancipation was the only way to ensure they couldn't do it again. I miss Luna every day. I'm building a new life without her and without my parents. It's lonely and difficult, but it's mine. And no one can take away my medical treatment without my consent anymore. That's worth the cost of being legally alone at 17. My sister destroyed my art portfolio for college, so I exposed her plagiarism to her university. I'm 19 MF, younger sister to Chloe, 23 Unifemale. I'm an artist, painting, digital art, sculpture, and I've been building my portfolio since I was 15. This portfolio represented 4 years of my best work, pieces I'd created for a competitive art scholarship and application to my dream school, RISD. My portfolio was stored in our shared home studio space. Physical pieces, digital files on my external hard drive, sketches, everything organized and documented. I'd spent months curating it, photographing work, writing artist statements. 2 weeks before my application deadline, I came home to find my studio space destroyed. Paintings slashed or painted over, sculptures smashed. My external hard drive erased and physically damaged. 4 years of work, gone. Chloe admitted she'd done it during a screaming fight. She said she was tired of our parents praising my talent while she had to work hard for everything. That destroying my portfolio would level the playing field and teach me that natural ability doesn't matter without discipline. She'd systematically destroyed years of work out of pure jealousy. I was devastated, sobbing, unable to even process the loss. My parents were horrified but said they couldn't fix it, that Chloe had acted out of pain about feeling less talented, that I should try to understand her insecurity. I missed my application deadline. Even working frantically, I couldn't recreate enough portfolio pieces in 2 weeks. I ended up at a state school instead of RISD. My scholarship opportunity was gone. Chloe faced no real consequences. Our parents made her apologize, but she kept her college funding, kept their support, faced no actual punishment for destroying my future. I waited a year. Then I remembered. Chloe is in a competitive graduate program for English literature, and I'd once helped her with a paper. Noticed she'd plagiarized sections from obscure sources. I went through her published work, her thesis, her academic papers. Found extensive plagiarism throughout, paragraphs copied from sources without citation, ideas stolen and presented as original analysis. I compiled everything and anonymously reported her to her university's Academic Integrity Board. The university took plagiarism seriously. They investigated Chloe's entire academic record, found plagiarism in her undergraduate honors thesis, multiple graduate papers, and her master's thesis that was awaiting publication. The Academic Integrity Board ruled that Chloe had engaged in systematic, intentional plagiarism throughout her academic career. She was expelled from her graduate program, her master's degree was revoked, and the publications that had accepted her thesis rescinded their offers. Her academic career was destroyed. Years of graduate work gone. Her reputation in her field ruined before it even began. She'd been on track for a PhD program. Now she was blacklisted from academic work. Chloe figured out it was me who'd reported her. She showed up at my apartment screaming, asking how I could destroy her entire career over old hurt feelings about the portfolio. That what she'd done had been a moment of jealous rage, while what I'd done was calculated destruction of her professional future. I told her she'd destroyed 4 years of my work and my opportunity to attend my dream school. That her plagiarism was her own crime. I'd just exposed what she'd already done. That if she wanted to talk about calculated destruction of futures, she'd started it. Our parents are furious with me. They say Chloe made a terrible mistake destroying my portfolio, but that I've now ruined her entire life. That graduate degrees and academic careers are more important than art school applications. That my revenge was disproportionate. My dad said I'm vindictive and cruel, that I've permanently damaged Chloe's life over something that happened when she was struggling with mental health and jealousy. That the right response was forgiveness and moving on, not destroying her career years later. But I went to a state school instead of RISD because of what Chloe did. I lost scholarship opportunities, lost portfolio pieces I can never recreate, lost years of work. She stole my future and faced no consequences. Now she's facing consequences for her own academic fraud, and suddenly I'm the villain for exposing it. A year later, Chloe is working retail and trying to figure out what to do with her life. She can't return to graduate school. The expulsion and revoked degree are permanent marks on her academic record. The field she'd spent years preparing for is closed to her. Our parents have essentially cut me off emotionally. They speak to me, but barely. Family events are tense. They make it clear they think I destroyed Chloe's life out of spite, that I'm cruel and unforgiving. My extended family is divided. Some think Chloe deserved it. She plagiarized extensively and destroyed my future first. Others think I went too far, that ruining her graduate degree and career was excessive revenge for portfolio destruction. Chloe sent me a letter recently. She admitted that destroying my portfolio was the worst thing she'd ever done, that jealousy had driven her to something unforgivable. She apologized genuinely for the first time. Then she said that her plagiarism was also driven by that same insecurity, feeling like she wasn't good enough, taking shortcuts because she didn't believe in her own abilities. That we'd both been destroyed by her jealousy, just years apart. She asked if I felt satisfied now that we'd both lost our futures. I don't know how to answer that. I'm not at RISD. I didn't get the education or opportunities I worked toward. But Chloe isn't in academia either. We're both working jobs unrelated to our passions, both dealing with destroyed dreams. Did I get justice, or did I just ensure we both ended up miserable? My therapist says Chloe's plagiarism was her own crime, that exposing it wasn't revenge so much as accountability. That Chloe destroyed my future without remorse, and only apologized after facing consequences herself. But late at night, I wonder if I'm just like her, so consumed by jealousy and hurt that I destroyed someone's future to feel better about my own loss. Some friends say I'm a hero for exposing academic fraud. Others have distanced themselves, uncomfortable with what they see as vindictive, long-term revenge plotting. I'm 21 now, still at state school, still making art but without the connections and education RISD would have provided. Chloe is 25, working retail, blacklisted from the academic career she'd spent her entire life preparing for. We're both casualties of her initial jealousy and my eventual revenge. Whether that's justice or just mutual destruction, I honestly don't know. What I know is this. She destroyed 4 years of my work in a few hours of rage. I destroyed her academic career with a few hours of research and a well-documented report. We're even now, in the worst possible way. And our relationship, our family, our futures, all collateral damage in a cycle of jealousy and revenge that neither of us won. My stepmother had my car towed and crushed, claiming it was abandoned, so I exposed her affair. I'm 24-year-old male, and my dad remarried Patricia, 41-year-old female, when I was 19. Our relationship has always been cold. She resented that my dad had a nearly adult son when they married, treated me like an inconvenience in her house with my dad. When I turned 22, I bought my first car, a 1994 Toyota Supra that I'd saved for years to afford. It needed restoration work, but it was my dream car. I kept it at my dad's house since I was living in an apartment with no garage, and Dad had a large property with space for project cars. I worked on that Supra every weekend for 2 years. New engine, custom paint, interior restoration, everything. Poured thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into it. The car was nearly finished, just needed final detailing and registration. Last month I was away for 3 weeks on a work trip. When I returned and went to my dad's to work on the Supra, it was gone. Patricia said she'd had it towed as an abandoned vehicle that was cluttering the property. Said she'd warned me multiple times to move it, she hadn't, and that after I ignored her warnings, she'd called a tow company to remove it. The tow company had already crushed it. My Supra, 2 years of work, thousands of dollars, nearly complete, was compacted metal at a scrapyard. I was devastated and furious. Patricia was completely unapologetic, said it was her property and she had the right to remove abandoned vehicles, that I should have moved it when warned. My dad was upset but weirdly passive, said Patricia had made a unilateral decision he disagreed with, but that it was done now and we should move forward. Then I remembered. I'd installed a security camera near where the Supra was parked after some tools went missing. The camera had been recording the whole time I was away. I reviewed the footage. Patricia hadn't called a tow company. She'd had her ex-boyfriend do it. They were clearly together, kissing, intimate, while arranging to have my car removed. She'd been having an affair the entire time she'd been married to my dad. I sent the footage to my father. The footage showed everything. Patricia and her ex-boyfriend, Mark, meeting at my dad's property while Dad was at work. Them kissing, being intimate near the garage. Their conversation about getting rid of my eyesore car as an excuse for Mark to visit the property in his tow truck. Patricia hadn't paid a towing company. She'd had her affair partner destroy my car for free while my dad was working. Dad was shattered. Confronted Patricia with the evidence. She initially denied it, then admitted to the affair when faced with video proof. Said she'd been unhappy in the marriage, that my dad worked too much, that Mark understood her better. Dad filed for divorce immediately. In our state, adultery affects divorce settlements. Patricia's affair, combined with her destruction of my property during that affair, became central to the divorce proceedings. Patricia tried to claim the car was legally abandoned on her property, so she had the right to remove it. But the video evidence showed premeditation and malice. She'd destroyed my car specifically to create opportunities to see her affair partner, not because it was actually abandoned. My insurance adjuster determined the car's value at $28,000 based on the restoration work and parts. Patricia was ordered to pay restitution as part of the divorce settlement, since she'd deliberately destroyed my property. The divorce has been brutal. Patricia's family blames me for spying on her with the security camera, says I destroyed their daughter's marriage by exposing the affair, that I should have minded my own business instead of sending the footage to my dad. But I didn't install the camera to spy on Patricia. It was there months before for security. She destroyed my car. I reviewed footage to understand what happened and discovered her affair in the process. Extended family is split. Some think Patricia deserved exposure for both the affair and destroying my car. Others think I should have confronted Patricia privately about the car instead of sending affair evidence to my dad. My dad is grateful for the truth, but devastated by the betrayal. Patricia had been cheating for at least 8 months based on the camera footage, possibly longer. Patricia's ex-boyfriend, Mark, has been harassing me, saying I cost him his relationship with Patricia. She's apparently angry he got caught on camera. He claims the Supra was legitimately abandoned, and crushing it was legal property removal. 8 months post-divorce, my dad is rebuilding his life. The divorce settlement was heavily in his favor due to Patricia's adultery and property destruction. She got minimal assets and had to pay me $28,000 restitution for the Supra. I used that money to buy and restore another project car, this time keeping it at a secure storage facility far from family drama. Patricia's affair with Mark ended shortly after the divorce. Apparently, their relationship couldn't survive outside of the forbidden context. She struggled socially since the affair became known in their community. Patricia blames me entirely for her divorce, her financial situation, her damaged reputation. Sent messages saying I destroyed her life by sending that footage to my dad, that I should have confronted her privately about the car instead of exposing her affair. But I didn't expose her affair to punish her. I reviewed security footage to understand what happened to my car, and the affair was documented there. The footage showed she'd deliberately destroyed my property as an excuse to see her affair partner on my dad's property. Some extended family still think I went too far, that discovering the affair and immediately sending evidence to my dad was vindictive, that I should have confronted Patricia first, given her a chance to confess or end the affair herself. But why? She'd destroyed my car maliciously. She was cheating on my dad. Why did she deserve the courtesy of private confrontation when she'd shown me none regarding my property? My dad says the footage was painful but necessary, that he deserved to know his wife was unfaithful, that discovering it through my car investigation was just unfortunate timing for Patricia. I'm 25 now, working on a new project car, maintaining a better relationship with my dad post-Patricia. She's out of our lives permanently, dealing with consequences of her affair and the property destruction that led to its discovery. Was I wrong to immediately send the footage to my dad instead of confronting Patricia? Maybe. But she'd destroyed 2 years of my work and thousands of dollars of my property, and I discovered her betrayal of my father in the process of investigating that destruction. Some will always think I should have handled it differently, more privately, with more consideration for Patricia's situation. But Patricia showed no consideration for my property, my work, or my father's trust. Why would she deserve consideration she'd never extended to us? My Supra is gone forever. Patricia's marriage is over. My dad is healing, and I've learned to keep my projects somewhere people can't destroy them to facilitate their affairs. That's revenge, justice, or just consequences depending on who you ask. But I'm at peace with how it unfolded. My uncle stole my dog during my deployment, so I reported his illegal firearms collection. I'm 26 UMAL, Army Infantry, and I deployed to South Korea for 14 months. Before leaving, I arranged for my dog, Rex, a German Shepherd I'd raised from a puppy, to stay temporarily with my uncle, Dale, 51 UNAL. Dale lives on a rural property, has dogs of his own, and seemed like the perfect fit. I paid him monthly for Rex's care and sent detailed instructions about Rex's routine, diet, and medical needs. Throughout my deployment, Dale would send photos and updates. Rex looked happy and healthy. I counted down the days until I could bring him home. When I returned last month and went to pick up Rex, Dale told me he wasn't giving him back. Said Rex had bonded with his family, that moving him again would be cruel, that I was selfish for wanting to uproot him from the stable home he'd built. He said he'd grown attached and decided to keep Rex permanently. I was stunned. Rex was my dog, my companion through PTSD and difficult times. I'd trusted Dale with temporary care, not permanent ownership. Dale refused to discuss it, said if I tried to take Rex, he'd claim abandonment, that I'd left Rex for over a year and he'd assumed ownership. I contacted a lawyer who said I had clear legal ownership, that I'd paid for care, and had documentation proving temporary arrangement. But before pursuing legal action, I remembered something about Dale that I'd overlooked before. Dale is a gun enthusiast who'd shown me his collection years ago, including several firearms he shouldn't legally possess. Modified weapons, unregistered suppressors, and a few items that were straight up illegal under federal law. He'd bragged about his off-the-books collection, never thinking I'd remember or care. I documented what I knew and submitted a detailed anonymous tip to the ATF. Included specific details about the illegal modifications and unregistered items I'd seen in his workshop. 2 weeks later, the ATF raided Dale's property. They found exactly what I'd reported: illegal suppressors, modified rifles, unregistered weapons. Dale was arrested on multiple federal firearms charges. During the raid, animal control was called because Dale had Rex and his other dogs in unsanitary conditions. Turns out Dale hadn't been taking care of Rex the way he'd claimed. The photos he'd sent me were from early in my deployment. By the time of the raid, Rex was underweight, had untreated injuries, and was living in neglected conditions. Animal control seized all the dogs. I immediately presented my ownership documentation and proof of temporary care arrangement. They released Rex to me within 48 hours. Rex needed veterinary care for infections and malnutrition that Dale had neglected. The vet said several more months in those conditions could have caused permanent damage. Dale hadn't been feeding him properly, hadn't maintained his medical care, had basically warehoused him while taking my dog money and sending old photos. Dale is facing serious federal charges: illegal weapons possession, unregistered suppressors, modified firearms. He's looking at potential prison time and will definitely lose his gun rights permanently. My family is divided. Dale's immediate family is furious, saying I destroyed his life over a dog dispute, that reporting him to the ATF was vindictive overkill. They claim I should have just pursued civil court to get Rex back, that involving federal law enforcement was extreme revenge. My mom, Dale's sister, is angry with me too. Says Dale made a mistake refusing to return Rex, but that I've ruined his entire life: potential prison, loss of gun rights, financial ruin from legal fees, permanent criminal record. She says what Dale did was wrong, but what I did was disproportionate and cruel. But other family members and my military buddies say Dale got what he deserved, that he stole my dog, neglected him to the point of causing medical issues, and had illegal weapons he shouldn't have possessed anyway. That I didn't create the federal crimes. Dale did that himself by collecting illegal firearms. I just reported what already existed. Dale tried to call me from jail. I didn't answer. His wife sent messages saying I've destroyed their family, that Dale's facing years in prison, and they might lose their property over legal expenses. That all of this is because I couldn't let go of a dog. 3 months later, Dale took a plea deal. He's serving 18 months in federal prison for the firearms violations, followed by probation, and has permanently lost his right to own firearms. His lawyer tried to argue that I'd reported him as revenge for the dog dispute, but the prosecutor said Dale's illegal collection was serious, regardless of how it was discovered. Rex has fully recovered. He's healthy, back to his normal weight, and we've re-established our bond. The vet says he's doing great now, though there's some lingering anxiety from the neglect he experienced. Dale's wife divorced him during the plea process. She told family members she couldn't handle the financial and social consequences of his federal conviction. The property is being sold to cover legal fees and divorce proceedings. Extended family members still aren't speaking to me. My cousin sent a message saying I destroyed Dale's entire life: his marriage, his freedom, his property, his reputation, over a dog. That even if Dale was wrong to keep Rex, the punishment I orchestrated was psychopathic revenge. My mom says she understands why I was angry, but that I should feel guilty for the collateral damage. Dale's kids have a father in federal prison now. His ex-wife is struggling financially. Their lives have been upended. But here's what they're missing. Dale didn't just refuse to return Rex. He deliberately neglected him while taking my care payments, sent me fake photos to cover up the neglect, allowed Rex to deteriorate to the point of needing medical intervention, and tried to steal him permanently from a deployed service member. And separately, Dale chose to collect illegal firearms. He chose to modify weapons illegally, to possess unregistered suppressors, to maintain an illegal arsenal. I didn't create those crimes, he did. I just reported what I knew existed. My therapist says I shouldn't feel guilty for reporting illegal activity, that Dale's consequences are the result of his own choices, both stealing my dog and maintaining illegal weapons. That these two things, the dog theft and the illegal guns, converged, but I didn't manufacture either situation. Some veterans I know think I'm a hero for getting my dog back and taking down someone exploiting a deployed service member. Others think I went nuclear when legal action for the dog would have been sufficient. I don't regret what I did. Rex is safe and healthy. Dale is facing consequences for multiple bad choices he made, keeping my dog, neglecting him, and illegally collecting weapons. The fact that his weapons crimes were discovered through the dog dispute doesn't make them less real. Dale will be released from federal prison in about 14 months. I don't plan to ever speak to him again. Some family relationships are over permanently because of this. My mom is cordial but distant. Several cousins have cut me off entirely. But Rex is sleeping next to my bed right now, healthy and safe. And Dale's illegal weapons are no longer a danger to anyone. I can live with being the family villain if it means both those things are true. My aunt took credit for raising me after my mom died, so I told everyone the truth at her award ceremony. I'm 25 Unit F, and my mom died when I was 8. My dad was a mess, so my aunt, Linda, 52-year-old female, stepped in to help. According to family lore, Linda raised me after my mom's death, sacrificing her own life to care for her grieving niece. Here's the truth. Linda visited occasionally, took me shopping a few times a year, and showed up for birthday dinners. The person who actually raised me was my dad. He went to therapy, learned to braid hair, attended every school event, packed lunches, helped with homework, and rebuilt our lives together. He was both parents to me. But Linda told a different story. At family gatherings, she'd talk about raising me, about the sacrifices she made, the maternal role she stepped into. People would praise her selflessness. My dad never corrected her. He's quiet and non-confrontational. Last month, Linda was receiving a community award for her volunteer work with bereaved families. The award specifically mentioned her raising her niece after her sister's tragic death as an example of her dedication to helping grieving families. I was invited to the ceremony, expected to sit in the audience while Linda accepted an award partially based on a lie about raising me. I was furious but didn't know what to do. Then they announced I'd be giving a speech about Linda's impact on my life. I hadn't agreed to this. Linda had told the organizers I would, without asking me. I got on stage and told the truth. Said Linda was a loving aunt who visited occasionally, but that my father raised me. That he was the one who learned to braid hair, who attended school events, who got me through grief. That Linda's narrative of sacrificing her life to raise me was a lie that diminished my dad's actual sacrifice and work. The room went silent. Linda's face went red. After the ceremony, she screamed at me for humiliating her publicly, for destroying her reputation and credibility in the community. My family is divided. Some say Linda had it coming for lying. Others say I humiliated her at her own award ceremony over semantics about who raised me. The fallout was immediate and severe. The organization that gave Linda the award contacted her afterward, said they were reassessing her recognition given that a key part of her nomination, raising me after my mother's death, was apparently untrue. They didn't revoke the award entirely since her other volunteer work was legitimate, but they removed the mention of raising me from her citation and asked her to return the personalized plaque. The public embarrassment was significant. Linda's friends and colleagues who attended the ceremony witnessed everything. Her reputation in the bereaved family's community took a hit. People questioned what else she might have exaggerated about her work with grieving families. Linda's husband called me, furious, saying I'd destroyed his wife's credibility in the community over my need for attention. That Linda had helped raise me in important ways, even if not day to day. That my public call-out was cruel and vindictive. My dad felt terrible. He said he never wanted Linda exposed this way. That he'd been fine with her taking credit if it made her happy. That family harmony was more important than setting the record straight. But I wasn't fine with it. Linda built a public persona as a selfless maternal figure who raised her orphaned niece, while my dad, who actually did that work, got no recognition. She was receiving awards partially based on lies about her role in my life. Half my family thinks I did the right thing, that Linda's lies needed exposing, and that my dad deserved recognition for actually raising me. The other half thinks I humiliated Linda publicly when I could have corrected the record privately, that her volunteering work was still valuable even if she exaggerated her personal story. Linda isn't speaking to me. She sent a message through my cousin saying I destroyed years of her community work and reputation over jealousy that she got recognition, that I'm bitter and vindictive. My dad is caught in the middle. He loves his sister but also appreciates that I defended his role in raising me. He wishes I'd done it differently but understands why I was angry. According for Linda are ongoing. She stepped down from her leadership role in the bereaved families organization, partly from embarrassment, partly because people questioned her credibility after I exposed her exaggerations. Her friendships in that community are damaged. People view her differently, wonder what else she might have embellished. The woman who built her identity on helping grieving families is now associated with dishonesty about her own family grief story. My relationship with Linda is destroyed. We don't speak, don't attend the same family events. She's made it clear she considers me dead to her, that what I did was unforgivable. Extended family gatherings are split between Team Linda, who thinks I publicly destroyed her over a misunderstanding, and Team Truth, who thinks she had it coming for years of stolen valor regarding raising me. My dad has quietly been getting more recognition from family now. People who heard my speech have been acknowledging his role, thanking him for raising me as a single dad, recognizing the work he actually did. He's uncomfortable with the attention, but I think he appreciates being seen. Linda tried to repair her reputation by doing a social media post about misunderstandings and how family is complicated, but it came across as defensive and made things worse. The comments were mostly people who'd been at the ceremony or heard about it, saying she should have been honest from the start. I don't regret exposing her. Linda built a public image on a lie about raising me, while my dad's actual work went unrecognized. She was receiving community awards partially based on false claims about her sacrifices. But I do feel guilty about the method. Exposing her at her own award ceremony was brutal and humiliating. I could have corrected the record privately, talked to the organization beforehand, found a less public way to tell the truth. My therapist says Linda created the situation by lying for years, that my public response was a reaction to being put on stage to validate those lies without consent, that I'm not responsible for the consequences of her dishonesty. But family members say there's a difference between telling the truth and destroying someone publicly. That Linda's lies didn't justify the humiliation I caused at her ceremony. Maybe they're both right. Linda lied for years about raising me. I told the truth in the most damaging way possible. Her dishonesty and my revenge both had consequences. I'm 26 now, building my own life, maintaining my relationship with my dad. Linda is rebuilding her reputation and won't speak to me. Family is permanently fractured over whether I was right to expose her or wrong to do it so publicly. What I know is this: My dad raised me. He deserves that recognition. Linda tried to steal that narrative for community credibility and personal glory. I stopped her the only way I could, by telling the truth when she'd put me on stage to reinforce her lies. The cost was family relationships and Linda's reputation. Whether that was justice or just revenge dressed up as truth-telling, I honestly can't say. But my dad knows I see his sacrifice, and that matters more than keeping Linda's lie comfortable. My cousin used my name to catfish her boyfriend, so I exposed her entire fake persona. I'm 23 first F, and my cousin Natalie, 26 first female, and I look similar enough that people sometimes mistake us for sisters. We're both brunette, similar height and build, but I wouldn't say we're identical. We were close growing up, though we've drifted apart as adults. 6 months ago, I started getting weird messages from a guy named Troy on social media. He was calling me Tasha, not my name, I'm Emily, talking about our relationship, sending intimate messages that made me incredibly uncomfortable. I told him he had the wrong person, but he insisted, sending screenshots of conversations with Tasha, who was using my photos. I dug deeper and discovered Natalie had created an entire fake identity using my photos, my university information, and parts of my real-life story. She'd been dating Troy online for 8 months, pretending to be me, or rather, a fictional version of me named Tasha. She'd stolen photos from my private social media, created elaborate backstories mixing truth and fiction, and had this whole relationship with Troy where he thought he was dating me. They'd never met in person because Natalie kept making excuses. Family emergencies, work conflicts, scheduling issues. Troy was planning to fly across the country to finally meet Tasha next month. He'd bought plane tickets, booked a hotel, was planning this whole romantic weekend with a person who didn't exist. I confronted Natalie. She broke down, admitted everything, said she'd started the catfish as a joke but caught feelings for Troy. Couldn't figure out how to tell him the truth. She begged me not to tell Troy, said she'd end things gracefully, and he'd never know. But I was furious. She'd stolen my identity, used my photos for a romantic relationship without consent, created a situation where some stranger thought he knew intimate details about me. This wasn't just lying to Troy, it was violating me. I contacted Troy directly, sent him proof that I was the real Emily, that Tasha didn't exist, that Natalie had been catfishing him using my photos and identity. Troy was devastated. He'd fallen in love with Tasha, had been planning a future with her, had shared intimate conversations and feelings with someone he thought was real. Discovering it was all fake, using a stolen identity, destroyed him. He confronted Natalie publicly on social media, posting screenshots of their conversations next to my real photos, showing how she'd manipulated him using someone else's identity. The posts went viral in our extended social circle. Natalie's reputation was obliterated. Friends who'd known about her long-distance boyfriend, Troy, discovered she'd been catfishing him using her cousin's stolen photos. The humiliation was total and public. She lost friends, became known as that catfish girl, faced online harassment from people who saw Troy's posts. Her own social media was flooded with comments calling her a liar and manipulator. Troy threatened legal action for fraud and emotional distress. Natalie's parents had to hire a lawyer. Eventually, they settled privately. I don't know the details, but it involved Natalie paying Troy's expenses for the canceled trip and signing agreements not to contact him. My family is furious with me. Natalie's parents say I destroyed their daughter's reputation over something that didn't really hurt me, since I never interacted with Troy. That Natalie made a mistake, but I've ruined her life by exposing her so publicly instead of handling it privately. My aunt said I should have let Natalie end the relationship quietly, that contacting Troy and providing evidence for his public call-out was vindictive and cruel. That family doesn't destroy family over online drama. But Natalie used my identity. My photos, my life details, my name, modified. my university. Some stranger thought he had an intimate relationship with me based on lies Natalie told using my face. That's a massive violation. Some cousins agree with me, say Natalie deserved exposure for identity theft and catfishing. Others think I went too far by contacting Troy directly instead of just making Natalie stop. Natalie herself has sent multiple messages saying I destroyed her life, that she can't show her face anywhere without people knowing her as the catfish, that I could have handled it privately but chose public humiliation. A year later, the consequences for Natalie are still visible. She moved to a different city partly to escape the reputation, lost most of her friend group, developed severe anxiety about social situations and online presence. She's in therapy now, working through whatever drove her to create this elaborate fake identity. Her therapist apparently told the family that Natalie has issues with self-worth and was living vicariously through the better version of herself she created as Tasha. That explanation is supposed to make me sympathetic, but I'm still angry. Whatever Natalie's psychological issues, she stole my identity for 8 months, used my face to have an intimate relationship with a stranger, violated my privacy and sense of safety. Troy has moved on, is dating someone real now. He posted once about his catfish experience being a learning moment about online relationships. He's never contacted me again, which I appreciate. The whole situation was violating enough without ongoing connection to the man who thought he was intimate with me. My relationship with that side of the family is damaged, maybe permanently. Natalie's parents barely speak to me. Some cousins think I'm vindictive and cruel. Family gatherings are awkward, with clear factions about whether I did the right thing. Natalie sent me a letter recently, apologizing for using my identity, but saying my exposure of her went beyond justice into revenge. That I could have told Troy the truth privately. Could have. Helped him understand without giving him ammunition for public destruction of her reputation. Maybe she's right. Maybe I could have told Troy privately, let him handle the confrontation without my evidence for public call-out posts. But I was furious and violated, and I wanted Natalie to face real consequences for what she'd done. My therapist says using someone's identity for catfishing is serious, that my anger was justified, that Natalie's consequences came from her own actions, not my exposure. But she's also asked whether the public nature of my response was about justice or punishment. Probably both. Natalie stole my identity, and I wanted her humiliated the way I'd felt violated. That's honest, if not entirely noble. I'm 24 now, still dealing with anxiety about my online presence, still uncomfortable that a stranger thought he knew intimate details about me based on lies. Natalie is rebuilding her life in a new city, still known in our family as the cousin who catfished someone using my photos. We'll probably never have a relationship again. Family gatherings will always be tense. Some relatives will always think I destroyed Natalie disproportionately. Others will always think she got what she deserved. What I know is this: she used my face, my life, my identity to deceive someone for 8 months. When I discovered it, I told the truth in the way that ensured she faced consequences. Whether that was justice or revenge depends on who you ask. But I'd do it again, because my identity is mine, and no one, family or otherwise, gets to steal it for their fantasy relationship without facing consequences when the truth comes out. My brother killed my cat, accidentally, so I reported his unlicensed veterinary practice. I'm 26-year-old female with a cat named Pixel, who I'd had for 11 years, since I was 15. Pixel was my emotional support through high school, college, family issues, breakups, my constant companion and best friend. My brother, Owen, 32-year-old male, is a veterinary technician who's always resented that he only became a vet tech while his friends became full veterinarians. He's bitter about the income difference and frequently complains about being as knowledgeable as vets, but not getting the same respect. 2 months ago, Pixel seemed lethargic. Owen was visiting and offered to check him out, said he could diagnose and treat minor issues since he'd been a vet tech for 8 years. I was hesitant, but Owen insisted it was probably nothing serious, that taking Pixel to an actual vet was unnecessary expense. Owen examined Pixel and said he likely had a minor infection, gave him an injection of antibiotics he happened to have in his car, said Pixel would be fine in a day or two. Within 6 hours, Pixel was having seizures. I rushed him to an emergency vet, but he died before we arrived. The vet said the injection Owen gave caused a fatal reaction. Pixel had an allergy that would have been caught with proper examination and dosing, and the medication Owen used wasn't appropriate for cats anyway. Owen had injected my cat with medication meant for dogs, didn't check for allergies, didn't use proper dosing, and killed him through negligence and arrogance. When I confronted Owen, he said it was an accident, that he'd been trying to help, that I was being dramatic about just a cat. He showed no real remorse, just defensiveness about his professional judgment being questioned. I was shattered. Pixel died because Owen wanted to play veterinarian without the qualifications or legal authority. Then I discovered Owen had been running a side business treating people's pets off the books, charging less than vets, using medications he acquired improperly, performing procedures he wasn't licensed to do. He'd killed my cat, and he was still treating other animals illegally. I reported him to the state veterinary board with evidence of his unlicensed practice. The veterinary board investigation uncovered extensive illegal activity. Owen had been treating animals for years without proper licensing, using stolen or improperly acquired medications, performing procedures legally restricted to licensed veterinarians, and keeping no medical records of treatments. They found at least 3 other cases where Owen's treatments had seriously harmed or killed pets. Owners who'd trusted him to provide cheap care had lost their animals to his negligence. Owen was charged criminally with practicing veterinary medicine without a license, animal cruelty, and theft of controlled substances. He lost his vet tech license permanently. He's facing potential jail time and massive fines. His life is destroyed. Can't work in veterinary medicine ever again. Has a criminal record. Lost most of his income. Reputation completely ruined. Friends and former colleagues won't speak to him. My family is furious with me, not Owen. My parents say Owen made a tragic mistake with Pixel, but that I've destroyed his entire career and future out of revenge. That reporting him was vindictive overkill when his vet tech license suspension would have been sufficient punishment. They say I should have confronted Owen privately, maybe gotten him to stop the illegal practice voluntarily, not involved authorities who've now charged him criminally. Owen's ex-girlfriend called me, crying, saying I've ruined his life over an accident, that Owen loved animals and never meant to hurt Pixel, that my report has destroyed a good person who made one mistake. But it wasn't one mistake. Owen had been illegally treating animals for years. He killed my cat through arrogance and negligence. He showed no remorse, just defensiveness. And he was continuing to endanger other people's pets. Other pet owners whose animals Owen harmed have thanked me for reporting him, said they'd trusted him, and didn't know he was operating illegally until the investigation revealed it. But my family sees me as vindictive and cruel. Several relatives have cut contact, saying I destroyed my brother's life over a cat. My mother says she's lost one son to legal troubles and another child to vindictiveness, that I've torn the family apart. Owen sent me a message saying I've destroyed everything he worked for, that he'll never forgive me for reporting him instead of handling it privately. A year later, Owen is serving an 18-month sentence for unlicensed veterinary practice and animal cruelty. His criminal trial revealed even more victims, pets that had died or been permanently injured by his incompetent treatments. The prosecution argued Owen's illegal practice was motivated by ego and greed, not compassion. That he'd wanted the status and income of a veterinarian without earning the qualifications, and had endangered countless animals through arrogance. Owen is permanently barred from any veterinary work. After prison, he'll be on probation, likely working minimum wage jobs, his career completely destroyed. My family still blames me. They acknowledge Owen was wrong to practice illegally, but they say my report destroyed his entire life when we could have handled it within the family. But how? Owen killed my cat and was continuing to illegally treat other animals. Handling it within the family would have meant more pets dying from his incompetent care while we protected him from consequences. I'm 27 now, living with the grief of losing Pixel and the family fracture from reporting Owen. Some days I wonder if I went too far. Other days I remember Pixel seizing to death because Owen was too arrogant to admit he wasn't qualified. Owen's ex-girlfriend says he's devastated in prison, that he's lost everything. Career, income, reputation, freedom. That I could have just confronted him and made him stop the illegal practice. But Owen showed no remorse after killing Pixel, no intention of stopping his illegal business, no acknowledgement that he'd done anything wrong. Confronting him would have accomplished nothing except giving him time to hide evidence. My therapist says I'm not responsible for Owen's consequences. He chose to practice veterinary medicine illegally. He chose to treat animals without proper qualifications. He chose arrogance over competence. I just reported facts to appropriate authorities. But my family sees me as the person who destroyed Owen's life over a cat. That framing ignores that he killed my cat, that he was endangering other animals, that his illegal practice harmed multiple families. I miss Pixel every day. I see his photos and remember how he died, seizing and terrified because my brother wanted to play veterinarian without earning the credentials or respect that title requires. Owen is in prison. Other families' pets are safe from his incompetence. My cat is dead. My family is fractured. Was reporting Owen worth all of that? I think yes, even on days when I'm not sure. Because Pixel mattered. The other pets Owen harmed mattered. And Owen's ego and illegal activity deserved consequences, regardless of our shared DNA. Family wanted me to protect him, to handle it quietly, to prioritize his future over the animals he'd endangered. I chose Pixel's memory and other pets' safety instead. And I'd make that choice again. My father-in-law faked Alzheimer's to manipulate us into moving in, so I had him evaluated. I'm 32 EUROF, married to Derek, 34-year-old male. His father, Walter, 68-year-old male, has been widowed for 3 years. Derek and I live 2 states away with our 2 kids, 5-year-old female, 3-year-old male. We visit every few months, call weekly, maintain a good relationship with Walter. 6 months ago, Walter started calling Derek panicked, saying he couldn't remember things. Forgot where he was, couldn't recall conversations, left the stove on, got lost driving familiar routes. Classic early Alzheimer's symptoms that were escalating rapidly. Derek was devastated watching his father deteriorate. Walter's neighbor called, saying she'd found Walter wandering the street confused at 2 a.m. His doctor, according to Walter, said early onset Alzheimer's was progressing aggressively, that he shouldn't live alone. Derek and I discussed options. Moving Walter to assisted living felt cruel when he was still relatively functional. We decided to move in with Walter temporarily, help him get appropriate care, figure out long-term solutions. We uprooted our entire lives. I quit my job. Derek requested remote work. We pulled our daughter out of her school, left our home. Moved into Walter's house across the country to care for him during his decline. Within 2 weeks, I noticed something off. Walter's confusion was inconsistent. He'd forget something, then reference it perfectly later. He'd be lost in the house 1 minute, then navigate it perfectly the next. The pattern didn't match actual Alzheimer's progression. I started documenting. Noticed Walter's symptoms appeared mainly when Derek was present, or when discussions about us moving back came up. When I secretly observed him alone, he was completely functional. Reading the newspaper, managing finances online, cooking complex meals. Walter was faking Alzheimer's to manipulate us into moving in and staying. I scheduled a comprehensive neurological evaluation without telling Walter or Derek. Had Walter assessed by specialists who found zero evidence of cognitive decline. No Alzheimer's, no dementia, completely normal cognitive function for his age. When confronted with medical evidence, Walter admitted he'd faked everything to get Derek to move back home. Derek was shattered. His father had faked a devastating neurological disease, made him believe he was watching his dad lose himself, manipulated us into abandoning our lives across the country, all to have his son nearby. The concerned neighbor who called about Walter wandering? Walter had asked her to make that call, told her he was worried Derek didn't visit enough and needed a scare to make him more attentive. The doctor who diagnosed early Alzheimer's? Walter had lied. He'd never discussed any cognitive issues with his physician. Every panicked phone call about confusion, every concerning incident, every symptom, all fabricated manipulation to get Derek to give up his life and move home. Derek confronted his father. Walter broke down, admitted he'd been desperately lonely since Derek's mother died, that he couldn't stand being so far from his grandchildren, that he'd thought, if we just moved in temporarily, we'd realize how much better life was near him and stay permanently. He'd planned to recover gradually from the fake Alzheimer's, making it seem like our care had helped, convincing us to stay since we'd already relocated. I was furious beyond words. We'd quit jobs, pulled our daughter from school mid-year, left our home and community, all based on Walter's lies about having a terminal neurological disease. Derek was torn between fury and guilt. Angry at the manipulation, but feeling guilty for being angry at his widowed father, who was clearly struggling with loneliness. But I wasn't torn. I told Derek we were moving back immediately, that Walter had destroyed any trust we had, that faking Alzheimer's to manipulate your son is unforgivable. Derek's siblings, who live locally and barely visit Walter, were furious with me, not Walter. Said I was cruel for abandoning Walter after we'd discovered he was fine. That I should be relieved there's no Alzheimer's. That exposing his manipulation was vindictive when he was just a lonely old man. They suggested we should stay anyway since we'd already moved, that Walter clearly needed family around even if his methods were wrong. I refused. We moved back home within a month. I found a new job. Derek's company accommodated his return. Our daughter re-enrolled in her school. A year later, Derek and I are rebuilding the life Walter's manipulation destroyed. I'm at a new company with lower pay than my previous position. Our daughter struggled reintegrating into her old school after being pulled out mid-year. Derek's relationship with his father is permanently damaged. Walter is alone again, now with the added consequence that we barely visit. Derek calls monthly instead of weekly, out of obligation rather than genuine connection. We haven't visited since we moved back. Walter's siblings and Derek's siblings blame me entirely. They say I'm vindictive and unforgiving, that Walter made a desperate mistake out of grief and loneliness, that I've convinced Derek to punish his father by withholding grandchildren. But Walter didn't make a desperate mistake. He orchestrated an elaborate, months-long deception involving fake medical symptoms, manipulation of neighbors, lies about doctors. He made us believe he was dying mentally to force us to abandon our lives. Derek struggles with guilt. Feels like he should forgive his father, that loneliness drove Walter to extreme measures, that cutting contact is too harsh. But he also feels betrayed that his father would fake such a devastating disease. My therapist says Walter's actions were emotional abuse, disguised as need. That manufacturing a fake terminal illness to control your adult child's location is profoundly manipulative. That our decision to move back and limit contact is self-protection, not revenge. Walter has sent letters apologizing, saying he was wrong, begging to see his grandchildren. But his apologies always include justifications. He was lonely. He missed us. He didn't think we'd actually quit jobs. He thought we'd just visit more. He still doesn't understand that faking Alzheimer's isn't a forgivable mistake. It's calculated manipulation that damaged our careers, our daughter's education, our sense of trust. Some family members think a year of minimal contact is enough punishment, that I should encourage Derek to forgive and resume normal relationships. That Walter has learned his lesson and deserves access to his grandchildren. But what lesson? That faking terminal illness works to get your son to move across the country, you just have to maintain the lie better. That's not accountability. I'm 33 now, at a job I like less than the one I quit for Walter's lies, helping my daughter process why we moved and moved back within months, watching my husband struggle with betrayal by his father. Walter is 69, alone, facing consequences for faking a disease to manipulate us. Some people will always think I'm too harsh for maintaining boundaries, that family should forgive, that loneliness explains the manipulation, that grandparents deserve access to grandchildren. But Walter doesn't get access to our lives after proving he'll destroy them to get what he wants. That's not revenge, that's basic self-preservation. He faked Alzheimer's. We rebuilt our lives far from his manipulation, and we're staying here, regardless of how many family members think we should forgive and forget. My aunt stole my late father's ashes and scattered them without me, so I revealed she wasn't his sister. I'm 25 male, and my dad, Michael, died suddenly in a car accident 4 months ago. He was only 52, and his death destroyed me. We were incredibly close. He raised me alone after my mom left when I was 3, and we had a bond that went beyond typical parent-child relationships. Dad was cremated per his wishes, and his ashes were supposed to stay with me until I decided on a final resting place. I was taking time to grieve and plan something meaningful, maybe scatter them at his favorite hiking spot when I was emotionally ready. My aunt, Lorraine, Dad's sister, 48 Unifield, had been pressuring me to scatter the ashes quickly at their childhood home's garden. She said it's what Dad would have wanted, that I was being selfish keeping him, that she deserved a say since she was his sister. I refused. Dad had never mentioned wanting his ashes there, and I needed more time to process before making permanent decisions about his final resting place. Last week, I came home to find the urn empty. Lorraine had used the spare key Dad had given her years ago, entered my apartment while I was at work, and taken the ashes. She'd scattered them at her house without telling me. I called her screaming. She said she'd freed Dad from my selfish grief, that he was now at peace in his childhood home, that I should be grateful she'd handled it since I was clearly too unstable to make good decisions. I'd missed my chance to be present when my father's ashes were scattered. Lorraine had stolen that final moment from me. I was devastated and enraged. Then I remembered the DNA test Dad and I had done 2 years ago for fun through one of those ancestry websites. When looking through Dad's matches recently, I'd noticed something odd. Lorraine wasn't listed as his sibling. In fact, there were no close DNA matches that matched Lorraine's side of the family. I investigated further and discovered the truth. Lorraine wasn't Dad's biological sister. She'd been adopted into the family as a teenager, something they'd apparently never disclosed publicly. I decided to share this information with the extended family that had supported Lorraine's decision to scatter Dad's ashes without me. I sent the DNA evidence to the entire extended family, along with an explanation. Lorraine had stolen my father's ashes and scattered them without my consent, claiming rights as his sister. But she wasn't his biological sister. She'd been adopted at 15, a fact the family had kept quiet. The revelation caused chaos. Many family members hadn't known Lorraine was adopted. Those who did know were furious I'd exposed it publicly, saying it was private family information I had no right to share. But I was making a point. Lorraine had claimed biological sister rights to justify stealing my father's ashes. If biology didn't matter, then my role as his son, biological or not, should have been respected. If biology did matter, then Lorraine had no more claim than any non-relative. Lorraine was humiliated and furious. She'd built her identity around being Michael's sister, had used that relationship to justify authority over his final arrangements, and now everyone knew the truth. The family split sharply. Some sided with me, saying Lorraine had crossed an unforgivable line by stealing the ashes, that exposing her adoption was harsh but justified, given what she'd done. Others said I'd weaponized private information to humiliate Lorraine, that exposing someone's adoption publicly was cruel, regardless of the circumstances. Lorraine's husband called me, said I'd destroyed his wife's relationship with the family, that she was devastated and depressed after being publicly outed as adopted, that whatever she'd done with the ashes, exposing her adoption, was disproportionate revenge. But Lorraine had stolen my father's ashes, the last physical remnant of him I had, and scattered them without me. I didn't get to be there, didn't get to say goodbye, didn't get to choose a meaningful location. She stole that from me out of her own need for control. My dad's best friend supported my decision, said Lorraine had always been controlling about Michael's life, that her theft of the ashes was inexcusable, that if exposing her adoption stopped her from claiming rights she didn't have, it was justified. But my grandmother, who'd adopted Lorraine decades ago, was devastated. Said I'd revealed something painful and private out of spite, that Lorraine's adoption had nothing to do with the ashes dispute. 6 months later, the family is permanently fractured. Lorraine has cut contact with most relatives, moved to a different state, apparently unable to handle the exposure and judgment. Some family members blame me entirely for destroying her. Others have cut Lorraine off, appalled that she stole a grieving son's father's ashes and scattered them without consent. They think exposing her adoption was harsh, but understandable, given the violation. My grandmother passed away 2 months ago. Lorraine didn't attend the funeral. Some cousins blame me for that too, say the family rift I created by exposing Lorraine's adoption meant she felt too unwelcome to attend her adoptive mother's funeral. But Lorraine created the rift when she stole my father's ashes. I just revealed information that proved she had no special biological claim to justify that theft. I've tried to recreate a memorial for Dad, visited the hiking spot where I'd planned to scatter some ashes, held a small ceremony there even though I had nothing physical to scatter. It's not the same. Lorraine stole the reality of that final moment. Some family friends have told me I should forgive Lorraine, that she was grieving too and made a terrible decision in the fog of grief, that exposing her adoption was vindictive and caused pain beyond the original offense. But grief doesn't excuse stealing someone's parents' ashes. And Lorraine's adoption wasn't my secret to keep once she'd used being his sister as justification for overriding my rights as his son. My therapist says both things are true. Lorraine violated me deeply by stealing the ashes, and I caused her deep pain by exposing her adoption. That my revenge was effective precisely because I knew it would hurt her most. I'm okay with that complexity. She stole my father's ashes and scattered them without me. I can never get that moment back, can never be present for my father's final resting. That loss is permanent. She lost her secret and her standing in the family. Both losses are permanent. We're even in the worst possible way. I'm 26 now, living with the grief of losing my father and the additional grief of not being present when his ashes were scattered. Lorraine is estranged from the family she was adopted into, living with consequences of both her theft and my revelation. Some people will always think I went too far, that exposing adoption is cruel, that I should have found another way to address the ashes theft, that revenge through family secrets is toxic. But Lorraine stole the last physical piece of my father and robbed me of the moment of saying goodbye. I revealed a truth that proved she had no special claim to make that decision. Both actions caused irreparable harm, and I'd reveal it again. Because she took something from me I can never get back, and she deserved to face consequences that matched the permanence of what she'd stolen. That's revenge. It's also truth. It's also justice. All three at once, messy and painful and permanent. And I'm living with it, just like Lorraine is living with being exposed, just like the family is living with fracture, just like I'm living with never being present when Dad's ashes were scattered. None of us won. We all just lost different things. And maybe that's the only justice possible when someone steals your chance to say goodbye to your father. My brother sabotaged my college apps, so I got him expelled from medical school. I'm 22-year OFF, and my brother, Ethan, is 25-year male. Growing up, our parents always compared us, with Ethan as the golden child destined for greatness, and me as the disappointment. Ethan was valedictorian, got into an Ivy League for pre-med, was on track to become a doctor like our dad. Senior year of high school, I applied to several top universities. I'd worked incredibly hard, had a 4.0 GPA, exceptional test scores, strong extracurriculars. I was particularly excited about Stanford, my dream school. Then, rejections started coming. Every single school rejected me except my safety school. I was devastated and confused. My stats were competitive. My essays were strong. I should have gotten into at least one reach school. 2 years later, I was home from community college. I'd gone there to save money after the rejections, when I found emails on the family computer that Ethan had forgotten to delete. He'd accessed my college application accounts using passwords he'd guessed, and systematically sabotaged every application. He'd edited my personal essays to include plagiarized paragraphs, changed my extracurricular descriptions to include obvious lies, and even sent follow-up emails to admissions offices from my account saying I was no longer interested or making bizarre disqualified statements. The emails to our cousin showed Ethan bragging about it. Can't let little sis outshine me. Made sure she won't be going anywhere prestigious. Mom and Dad's attention stays where it belongs. I was shattered. 2 years of community college when I should have been at Stanford or similar schools. All because Ethan couldn't handle the possibility of me succeeding. I didn't confront him. Instead, I planned. Ethan was in his first year of medical school at an extremely prestigious program. I did research and discovered medical schools have strict honor codes. I created a file with all the evidence of what he'd done to me, then anonymously reported him to his medical school's ethics board for demonstrating a pattern of dishonest and manipulative behavior incompatible with the medical profession. I included the emails, screenshots, everything. The medical school took it seriously. They launched an investigation into Ethan's character and conduct. During that investigation, they discovered other issues. Ethan had plagiarized portions of his medical school application essays. I'd found evidence of this too, but hadn't included it initially. They found it on their own. And he'd lied about volunteer hours on his application. The honor board ruled that Ethan had demonstrated a pattern of academic dishonesty and manipulative behavior fundamentally incompatible with becoming a physician. He was expelled from medical school with a notation on his permanent record that would make admission to any other medical program nearly impossible. My parents were destroyed. Ethan was their pride and joy, and his medical career had been the family's entire focus. When they found out about the expulsion, they were devastated and confused. Ethan eventually figured out I'd reported him. He showed up at my apartment screaming, asking how I could destroy his entire future over something that happened years ago. I showed him the evidence of what he'd done to me, told him he'd destroyed my future first, and that consequences had finally caught up to him. My parents demanded I fix it somehow, tell the medical school I'd lied, something to get Ethan reinstated. I refused. Told them Ethan had sabotaged my college applications out of pure jealousy and spite, that he'd stolen opportunities from me that I'd never get back. Mom said what he'd done was wrong, but that he'd been young and jealous, that destroying his medical career was disproportionate revenge, that I'd ruined his entire life when I could have just confronted him and moved on. Dad said I was vindictive and cruel, that family doesn't destroy family over past mistakes. But I transferred to a good university using my community college transcripts, which were perfect, and I'm thriving now. Ethan is working retail, applying to physician assistant programs, but getting rejected because of the notation on his record. Some extended family members think I did the right thing, that Ethan deserved consequences for sabotage. Others think I went too far, that ruining his medical career was excessive revenge for something that happened when he was younger and insecure. Ethan hasn't spoken to me in months. My parents barely acknowledge me, clearly angry I destroyed their son's future. A year has passed, and the family dynamics remain fractured. Ethan is still working retail, has been rejected from every PA program he's applied to. The notation on his record from the medical school expulsion is following him everywhere. My parents blame me entirely. They've told extended family that I vindictively destroyed Ethan's career, conveniently omitting the part where he sabotaged my college applications. To them, what Ethan did was a stupid mistake, while what I did was calculated destruction. I've found some peace with my decision. I'm at a university I love, studying what I'm passionate about, building the future Ethan tried to steal from me. But I won't pretend the guilt doesn't creep in sometimes. Late at night, I wonder if I went too far. Ethan was 23 when he sabotaged my applications, old enough to know better, but also young and insecure about being overshadowed. Did he deserve to have his entire career destroyed for a terrible choice he made at 23? Then I remember 2 years at community college when I should have been at Stanford. Job opportunities I lost because my degree isn't from a prestigious school. The professional network I never built. The research opportunities I never had access to. Ethan didn't just play a prank. He derailed my entire trajectory. My therapist says what I did was about accountability, not revenge. That Ethan's medical career was destroyed by his own pattern of dishonesty, not by me reporting it. That medical schools need to know if candidates have histories of manipulation and academic fraud. But some days it feels like revenge. Feels like I calculated exactly how to hurt Ethan maximum amount, found his vulnerable spot, and destroyed it. Ethan sent me an email recently, the first contact in over a year. He said he's thought a lot about what he did to me, that he was wrong, that jealousy and parental pressure made him do something unforgivable. He apologized sincerely for sabotaging my applications and for the years I lost because of his actions. Then he asked if there was any way I could write to the medical schools on his behalf, explain that he's changed, that the person who sabotaged my applications isn't who he is anymore. I haven't responded. Part of me appreciates the apology. Part of me thinks it's just manipulation to get me to help repair his career. My cousin, who knows the whole story, says I should help him, that he's apologized, that he's suffered consequences, that continuing to let him suffer serves no purpose except prolonging revenge. But I don't think I owe him rehabilitation. He destroyed my opportunities without remorse. I exposed his pattern of dishonesty. The consequences are his to live with. Family events are awkward now. My parents host dinners where Ethan and I maintain cold civility, while everyone pretends the tension isn't suffocating. My younger siblings have taken sides. One supports me, one thinks I'm cruel. Some relatives have cut me off, saying I'm heartless for destroying my brother's dreams. Others have privately told me Ethan had it coming, that accountability matters. I'm moving forward with my life. Ethan is stuck in his. Maybe that's justice. Maybe it's cruelty. Maybe it's both. What I know is this. I'll never get back the 2 years I spent at community college instead of Stanford. I'll never have the opportunities that were stolen from me. Ethan made sure of that when he sabotaged my future to protect his ego. So now he lives with consequences too. And I'm okay with that, even if my family never forgives me for it. My grandfather sabotaged my scholarship to keep me local, so I exposed his affair at his retirement party. I'm 22-year-old female, raised primarily by my grandparents, Robert, 67 male, and Helen, 65-year-old female, after my single mom struggled with addiction. They gave me stability, education, love. I'm genuinely grateful for their role in raising me. Senior year of high school, I earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university 2,000 miles away. It was my dream school, full ride plus stipend, incredible opportunity. My grandparents seemed supportive initially but expressed concerns about me being so far from family. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, the scholarship was suddenly revoked. The university said they'd received information that I'd plagiarized my application essay and fabricated extracurricular activities. They'd investigated and found evidence that disqualified me from the scholarship. I was devastated and confused. I'd written that essay myself, hadn't fabricated anything. But the university wouldn't reconsider. Someone had sent them proof of my dishonesty, and their decision was final. I ended up attending community college locally instead, living with my grandparents. They were sympathetic, but seemed almost relieved I'd be staying home. Years later, I was helping my grandmother organize old emails when I found correspondence between my grandfather and the university. Robert had sent them fabricated evidence of my plagiarism, copied my essay into older documents he'd backdated, created fake screenshots suggesting I'd lied about volunteer work. He'd systematically destroyed my scholarship to keep me from moving across the country. My grandfather, who I loved and trusted, had sabotaged the biggest opportunity of my life because he didn't want me to leave. I confronted him. Robert admitted it but defended himself, said he'd raised me and couldn't bear to have me leave, that the local college was perfectly fine, that keeping family together was more important than prestige, that I'd understand when I was older why he'd done it. I was furious and heartbroken. Then I remembered something I'd seen in those emails, messages to a woman who wasn't my grandmother, clearly romantic and ongoing for years. Robert had been having an affair. His retirement party was in 3 weeks. I prepared a presentation. Robert's retirement party had 80 guests, family, friends, former colleagues, people from their church. I'd volunteered to put together a tribute slideshow, so everyone expected me to speak. I started with genuine gratitude for how my grandparents raised me. Then I transitioned to difficult truths about Robert's character. I displayed the emails where he'd fabricated evidence to destroy my scholarship, showed his correspondence with the university, the fake documents he'd created, his admission in recent confrontation that he'd done it to keep me local. 80 people watched as I exposed how Robert had sabotaged his granddaughter's future to prevent her from moving away. Then I showed the affair emails. Years of romantic correspondence with a woman named Diane, details of secret meetings, expressions of love while lying to my grandmother. The room was silent. My grandmother looked shattered. Robert was furious and humiliated, screaming that I was a vindictive brat who'd destroyed his retirement celebration. I told him he'd destroyed my scholarship and my trust, that he'd lied to Grandma for years while playing the devoted family man, that if he wanted to talk about vindictive destruction, he'd started it. I left the party. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. My grandmother filed for divorce, said she'd suspected the affair, but seeing proof publicly destroyed any remaining trust or desire to protect Robert's image. Extended family is massively divided. Some say Robert deserved public exposure for sabotaging my scholarship and cheating on Helen. Others say I destroyed a retirement party and a marriage out of spite, that I should have confronted Robert privately instead of humiliating him publicly. Robert's siblings have cut me off entirely, say I'm cruel and vindictive, that families don't air dirty laundry publicly, no matter what the grievance, that humiliating an elderly man at his retirement party was unconscionable. My grandmother has maintained her relationship with me, though she's heartbroken, says she's grateful to know the truth about both the scholarship and the affair, but wishes she'd learned differently. Robert has told family I'm dead to him, that after everything he did to raise me, I destroyed his reputation and marriage, that my vindictiveness proves he was right to keep me close. I couldn't be trusted far from family supervision. A year later, The consequences are permanent and far-reaching. Robert and Helen are divorced. Robert is mostly isolated, lost many friends who were horrified by the scholarship sabotage and affair revelation. Lives alone, bitter and angry. Helen is rebuilding her life, has started dating someone kind and honest. She's maintained her relationship with me, though it's complicated by grief over her shattered marriage and the family fracture. I've tried to go back to that university, explaining what happened with documentation of Robert's sabotage. They were sympathetic but said too much time had passed, that I'd need to apply fresh as a transfer student. The full scholarship I'd originally earned is gone, permanently. I'm finishing my degree at a decent state school, but it's not the same opportunity. Robert stole that from me years ago, and his public exposure doesn't return what was lost. Some family members think I was justified. Robert sabotaged my future and cheated on his wife, deserved public exposure for both. Others think I went too far, that destroying his retirement party and marriage was disproportionate revenge. Robert sent a letter recently, first contact in over a year, mostly blame, says I was ungrateful, that he'd raised me when my mother couldn't, that exposing him publicly was the ultimate betrayal, that families are supposed to protect each other, not destroy each other. But Robert didn't protect me. He destroyed my scholarship to control where I lived. He betrayed Grandma with years of infidelity. He built his life on lies and manipulation, and I exposed what already existed. My therapist asks if I regret the method, the public retirement party exposure. Honestly, sometimes. The humiliation was brutal and permanent. I could have told Grandma privately, could have confronted Robert without an audience. But Robert had never faced real consequences for anything. Not the sabotage, not the affair. Private confrontation would have let him minimize, deflect, maintain his respectable image while I carried the knowledge of what he'd done. The public exposure ensured he couldn't hide, couldn't rewrite the narrative, couldn't maintain the facade of devoted grandfather and faithful husband while having destroyed my future and betrayed my grandmother. Was it revenge? Yes. Was it also justice? Also yes. Both things coexist uncomfortably. I'm 23 now, finishing a degree at a school that's fine, but not my dream. Robert is divorced and estranged from most family. Grandma is healing and free from his lies. My relationship with extended family is fractured permanently. I lost the scholarship opportunity years ago when Robert sabotaged it. I lost family relationships when I exposed him. He lost his marriage, reputation, and retirement celebration. Nobody won. We all just lost different things. Some will always think I should have forgiven him, handled it privately, chosen family harmony over public truth. But Robert chose controlling me over my future when he sabotaged that scholarship. He chose his affair over his marriage. I just chose to stop protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. And I'd make that choice again, even knowing the cost. Because the truth mattered more than his comfort. My future mattered more than his control. And Grandma deserved to know she'd been lied to for years. That's revenge and justice and truth all tangled together. And I'm okay living in that complexity, even when others think I should have stayed silent to keep the peace. My sister tried to adopt my baby claiming I was unfit, so I revealed she can't have kids. I'm 23-14F with a 6-month-old daughter, Emma. I had her young and unmarried, which my family judged harshly. My sister, Brooke, 29 Fela female, has been married for 5 years, desperately wants children, and has struggled with infertility for years. When I got pregnant, Brooke suggested I let her raise the baby, since she was married and established while I was young and single. I refused. Emma was my daughter, and I was fully capable of raising her despite my age. Brooke didn't drop it. Throughout my pregnancy, she'd make comments about how hard single motherhood would be, how Emma would suffer without a traditional family, how adoption would give Emma a better life with married parents. After Emma was born, Brooke's campaign intensified. She'd visit constantly, criticize my parenting, take photos of minor messes and normal baby chaos as evidence I was struggling. Last month, I was served with legal papers. Brooke and her husband had filed to take custody of Emma, claiming I was an unfit mother. Their petition included photos of my apartment looking messy, normal with a baby, claims I'd left Emma unsupervised, completely false, and statements from concerned family members about my instability. Brooke was trying to legally take my child by painting me as incompetent. I hired a lawyer immediately. During discovery, we found that Brooke had been documenting evidence of my unfitness for months, staging photos to look worse than reality, mischaracterizing normal parenting moments as neglect, coaching family members to express concerns. Her goal was clear: get Emma removed from my custody so she and her husband could adopt her. She'd essentially been building a false case against me to steal my baby. The court investigated and found zero evidence of actual neglect or unfitness. I'm a good mother. Emma is healthy, happy, well cared for. Brooke's case was dismissed. But I was furious beyond words. My sister had tried to take my child through legal manipulation and fabricated evidence. Then I remembered something Brooke had told me in confidence years ago. She can't have biological children due to a specific medical condition. She'd kept this private from extended family, letting them believe the infertility was unexplained. At the next family gathering, I shared exactly why Brooke was so desperate to take Emma. I told the entire family that Brooke couldn't have biological children due to her condition, that her desperation to become a mother had driven her to try to take mine through false custody claims. The room went silent. Brooke was devastated and furious. I'd revealed her most private medical information in front of 30-plus family members. She screamed that I was cruel and vindictive, that her medical condition was private, that I'd humiliated her publicly over a custody dispute. I said she'd tried to take my child by fabricating evidence that I was unfit, that her infertility didn't give her the right to steal someone else's baby, that the family deserved to know why she'd been so aggressively pursuing custody. Extended family reactions were mixed. Some were horrified by Brooke's custody attempt and thought she deserved exposure. Others were appalled I'd revealed such private medical information publicly, saying it was cruel regardless of what Brooke had done. Brooke's in-laws confronted her about the false custody filing, apparently shocked by how far she'd gone. Her husband, David, was humiliated that his wife's infertility and their custody attempt were now public knowledge. Several family members who'd provided concerned statements for Brooke's custody filing admitted they'd been manipulated. Brooke had framed her questions to elicit responses that sounded damning out of context. My parents are devastated and divided. Mom thinks I went too far exposing Brooke's medical condition, that families keep private struggles private. Dad thinks Brooke's attempt to take Emma was unforgivable and exposure was justified. Brooke has cut contact with most of the family, apparently unable to face people after her infertility and custody manipulation were exposed. She moved to a different city, and I've heard she and David are in marriage counseling. Some cousins have told me I should feel guilty for exposing her medical condition so publicly, that it was sensitive information I weaponized out of revenge. But Brooke tried to take my baby. She fabricated evidence, manipulated family, filed legal papers to remove my daughter from my custody. She didn't get to keep her dignity and privacy after attempting to steal my child. A year later, Brooke and David have divorced. Apparently, the stress of the failed custody attempt, the public exposure, and underlying issues related to infertility destroyed their marriage. Brooke's ex-in-laws blame me for humiliating their son and contributing to the divorce. Brooke has moved across the country, cut contact with most family. From what I've heard through relatives, she's in therapy, dealing with infertility grief and the consequences of her custody attempt. Some family members think I destroyed Brooke's life, her marriage, her privacy, her relationship with the family. over a custody dispute that was ultimately dismissed. That exposing her infertility was unnecessarily cruel when I'd already won the legal case. But winning the legal case didn't erase what Brooke tried to do. She systematically built a false case against me, manipulated family members, attempted to take my daughter through fabricated evidence. The legal dismissal protected Emma, but it didn't address the betrayal. My therapist asks if exposing Brooke's infertility brought me peace or just prolonged the conflict. Honestly, both. There was satisfaction in Brooke facing consequences and family understanding her motivations. But there's also ongoing tension with relatives who think I crossed a line. Emma is 18 months old now, thriving, happy. Brooke has no contact with us and no legal claim to custody. The family is fractured, some supporting my exposure of Brooke, others thinking I was vindictive and cruel. My mom occasionally brings up reconciliation, says Brooke was driven by grief and desperation over infertility, that I should consider forgiveness now that time has passed. But Brooke tried to take my child, not through honest adoption discussion or offering support, but through legal manipulation and false allegations of unfitness. That's not grief. That's attempting to steal someone else's baby. Exposing her infertility was harsh. It was also the truth about why she was so desperate, why she crossed ethical and legal lines, why she felt entitled to my daughter. I'm 24 now, raising Emma alone, estranged from my sister permanently, navigating complicated family dynamics. Brooke is 30, divorced, living far away with consequences of her custody attempt and my revelation. Did exposing her medical condition go too far? Maybe. Did she deserve consequences for trying to take my baby through lies? Absolutely. Both can be true. Some people will always think I should have kept her infertility private, that medical information is sacred, that revenge through someone's deepest pain is unforgivable. But Brooke tried to take my deepest love, my child, through lies about my fitness as a mother. She weaponized the family and legal system to steal my baby. I weaponized truth about her desperation. Both actions caused permanent damage. We're even, in the most painful way possible. And I'd expose her again. Because Emma is my daughter, Brooke had no right to her, regardless of infertility. And the family deserved to understand why Brooke crossed unconscionable lines. That's revenge. That's protection. That's truth, all tangled together in ways that don't resolve cleanly. And I'm living in that mess, raising my daughter, knowing that Brooke will always see me as the sister who humiliated her at her most vulnerable. But I'll always see her as the sister who tried to take my child. And between those two violations, I know which one I can live with. My siblings reported me to CPS claiming neglect so they could take my inheritance, so I proved they forged evidence. I'm 30-year-old female with sole custody of my 3 kids, 8-year-old male, 6-year-old female, 4-year-old male, after my ex left 3 years ago. My grandmother passed last year and left me her house and property, worth about $850,000, because I'd been her primary caregiver for 5 years while my siblings barely visited. My brother, Keith, 35-year-old male, and sister, Jenna, 33-year-old female, were furious about the inheritance. They'd expected everything to be split 3 ways, were outraged that Grandma left me the valuable property while they got small monetary bequests. They contested the will but lost. Grandma's wishes were clear and legally sound. 2 months ago, CPS showed up at my door. Someone had filed a report claiming my children were neglected, malnourished, living in filth, inadequately supervised, showing signs of abuse. The claims were detailed and alarming. CPS investigated thoroughly, interviewed my kids at school, inspected my home, reviewed medical records, talked to teachers and neighbors. They found 0 evidence of neglect or abuse. My kids are healthy, well-fed, clean, happy, thriving in school. The investigator told me the report had been filed anonymously, but included photos allegedly showing my home in squalid conditions and my children looking neglected. Except the photos were clearly fabricated. Wrong furniture, wrong rooms, children who weren't even mine edited to look like my kids. CPS closed the case as unfounded, but flagged the false report for investigation. False CPS reports, especially with forged evidence, are criminal. I hired a digital forensics expert who traced the photos' metadata. They'd been edited on Keith's computer. The evidence of neglect was manufactured by my siblings to get CPS to remove my children, hoping that would make me unstable enough to lose the inherited property or force me to sell and split proceeds. They'd tried to use the child welfare system as a weapon to steal my inheritance by getting my kids taken away. I pressed charges for filing false reports, child endangerment, fraud, and conspiracy. Provided all the forensic evidence showing they deliberately fabricated abuse allegations against me. The criminal investigation revealed the full scope of Keith and Jenna's plan. Text messages between them discussed using CPS to destabilize me, making me appear unfit so they could challenge my inheritance again, or force me to sell the property while overwhelmed by child custody issues. They'd researched what allegations would trigger mandatory CPS investigation. They'd manufactured photographic evidence specifically designed to look like severe neglect. They'd coordinated their stories to make the anonymous report more credible. This wasn't an impulsive false report. It was a calculated conspiracy to weaponize Child Protective Services against me for financial gain. Both were charged with multiple felonies: filing false child abuse reports, conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and child endangerment. The legal theory being that false reports waste CPS resources that should protect actually endangered children. The family exploded. My parents begged me to drop charges, said Keith and Jenna had made a terrible mistake driven by grief over Grandma's unequal inheritance, that family shouldn't send family to prison over estate disputes. But this wasn't an estate dispute. They'd tried to get my children taken away through fabricated abuse allegations. They'd put my kids through CPS interviews and investigations based on lies. They'd created fake evidence of me harming my children. Keith and Jenna both took plea deals to avoid trial. Keith got 14 months in prison plus probation. Jenna got 10 months plus probation. Both have permanent criminal records that will affect their careers. Keith's in finance, Jenna's a teacher, both fields where child endangerment convictions are devastating. My parents blame me for overreacting, for pressing charges when I could have just accepted their apology. Say I've destroyed my siblings' lives and careers over an inheritance they were legitimately upset about. Extended family is divided. Some say Keith and Jenna's false CPS report was unforgivable and deserved prosecution. Others say I should have dropped charges after they admitted wrongdoing, that sending them to prison was vindictive revenge. But they tried to get my children taken away. They manufactured evidence of child abuse. They weaponized the foster system against me for money. Keith sent a letter from prison saying he's sorry, that grief and financial stress made him do something terrible, that he never thought it would go this far. He asks if I'll forgive him after he serves his sentence. A year later, both Keith and Jenna have been released from prison and are on probation. Their lives are permanently altered. Keith lost his finance job due to the conviction. Jenna's teaching license was revoked for child endangerment charges. They're both working low-wage jobs, struggling to rebuild with criminal records, facing years of probation. Their reputations in our community are destroyed. People know they filed false child abuse reports to steal their sister's inheritance. My parents have essentially chosen them over me. They're helping Keith and Jenna financially, providing emotional support, while barely speaking to me. They've said repeatedly that I could have shown mercy, could have accepted an apology, could have chosen family over prosecution. But I didn't choose prosecution over family. Keith and Jenna chose inheritance over my children's well-being when they filed false abuse allegations. My kids went through traumatic CPS interviews because their aunt and uncle wanted money. Teachers and neighbors were questioned about whether I was abusing my children. For weeks, I lived in fear my kids might actually be removed based on fabricated evidence. That trauma doesn't disappear because Keith and Jenna regret getting caught. Some extended family members have maintained relationships with me, horrified by what my siblings did. Others have cut me off for destroying Keith and Jenna's futures over a family disagreement about inheritance. But framing it as a disagreement erases what they actually did: weaponize Child Protective Services through manufactured evidence to try to force me to give up property I'd legally inherited. My therapist says I shouldn't feel guilty for their consequences, that they made criminal choices, that protecting my children and myself through legal means was appropriate, that their prison sentences resulted from their actions, not my report. But family gatherings are impossible now. My parents host holidays with Keith and Jenna. I'm not invited. Cousins are split between Team Prosecution and Team Mercy. The inheritance that caused all this sits in my name, the house Grandma left me, now associated with permanent family fracture. Keith and Jenna lost their careers and freedom. I lost my siblings and parents. My kids lost their aunt, uncle, and grandparents who've chosen not to see them since the prosecution. Was it worth it? I think yes, even on hard days. Because they tried to take my children. They manufactured child abuse allegations. That's not a family disagreement. That's a criminal attack on my family. Some people will always think I should have forgiven and moved on, that prosecution was too harsh, that family should resolve things privately, that I chose revenge over reconciliation. But they tried to get CPS to take my children based on forged evidence. There's no private resolution for that. There's only accountability, consequences, and protecting my kids from people who'd use them as weapons in an inheritance dispute. I'm 31 now, raising my kids in the house Grandma left me, estranged from siblings who are ex-convicts because they weaponized child welfare against me. That's the cost of the inheritance they wanted to steal, the price of their false allegations, the consequence of choosing money over family. And I'd make the same choice again. Prosecute, protect my children, refuse to let them escape consequences for trying to destroy my family for financial gain. My sister convinced my fiancé I was cheating to steal him, so I played the recording at their wedding. I'm 29 years ago female, and I was engaged to Marcus, 31-year-old male, for 2 years. We were planning our wedding when everything fell apart 6 months ago. Marcus suddenly became distant, accused me of being unfaithful, said he couldn't trust me anymore. I was blindsided. I'd never cheated, never even given him reason to doubt me. When I pressed for details, Marcus said my sister, Vanessa, 27-year-old female, had come to him with proof, screenshots of texts, photos, receipts showing I'd been having an affair with a coworker for months. I demanded to see the evidence. The screenshots looked like my text threads, but I'd never sent those messages. The photos were manipulated, my face edited onto someone else's body in compromising situations. The receipts were for hotel stays I'd never made. Everything was fabricated, but it was convincing enough that Marcus believed it. He broke off our engagement despite my denials, said he couldn't marry someone he couldn't trust. 2 months later, Marcus and Vanessa announced they were dating. They'd found comfort in each other during the difficult time after our breakup. The timeline made it obvious. Vanessa had wanted Marcus, fabricated evidence of my infidelity to break us up, then swooped in to console him. I was devastated and furious. My sister had stolen my fiancé through elaborate lies and manipulation. When I confronted her, she denied everything, said Marcus had simply realized they were better suited. But I'd kept something. I'd recorded our last conversation before Marcus and I broke up, where he detailed the evidence Vanessa had shown him. In that recording, I'd responded to each piece of false evidence with explanations of why it couldn't be real, offered to prove my innocence through phone records and witness statements. Marcus and Vanessa got engaged quickly and planned a wedding for 4 months later. I wasn't invited, obviously. But my parents were, extended family was, mutual friends were. I contacted the DJ they'd hired, paid him significantly to play my recording during the reception's open mic toast time. At their wedding reception, instead of a toast, the room heard Marcus detailing Vanessa's fabricated evidence, followed by my recorded voice methodically explaining why each piece was false, manipulated, or fabricated. The recording played for 8 minutes while the wedding reception sat in stunned silence. Marcus describing the fake screenshots, the manipulated photos, the fraudulent hotel receipts. My voice calmly explaining that I'd never sent those texts, that the photos were edited, that I could prove I wasn't at those hotels. Then, the most damning part. Me asking Marcus point blank, "Did Vanessa show you any actual evidence, or just screenshots she could have easily faked?" Marcus admitting, "Just screenshots. But why would your sister lie about this?" The implication was clear. Vanessa had fabricated everything to destroy our relationship, and Marcus had believed her without demanding real proof. The DJ cut it off after 8 minutes, but the damage was done. Guests were staring at Vanessa and Marcus. People started leaving. Marcus looked shattered, apparently just now realizing he'd been manipulated. Vanessa figured out I was behind it, found me outside the venue. I'd been watching from the parking lot. She screamed that I'd destroyed her wedding, that I was a vindictive psycho who couldn't let her be happy. I told her she'd destroyed my relationship and engagement through lies, and that I'd simply exposed those lies at her celebration. That she'd built her marriage on fabricated evidence and manipulation, and now everyone knew it. Marcus came out, devastated, asking if what I'd said in the recording was true, that all of Vanessa's evidence had been fabricated. I confirmed it, offered now to show him phone records, my actual location data from those dates, proof of everything I'd tried to show him 6 months ago. He asked why I hadn't proven my innocence before. I said I'd tried, but he'd trusted my sister over me without even asking for verification. That I couldn't force him to believe me when he'd already decided I was guilty. My family is destroyed. Parents are furious I ruined Vanessa's wedding, say I should have exposed her privately instead of humiliating her publicly. That playing the recording at her wedding reception was cruel and vindictive revenge. Extended family is split. Some think Vanessa deserved public exposure for her lies. Others think I went too far by destroying her wedding day. Marcus has been trying to contact me. Vanessa apparently admitted to fabricating the evidence after the recording played. Marcus wants to apologize, possibly reconcile. I've blocked him. 6 months after the wedding disaster, Vanessa and Marcus are divorced. Turns out building a marriage on lies about fabricated infidelity isn't sustainable once everyone knows it was all manipulation. Marcus tried everything to contact me, emails, messages through friends, showing up at my work. He's apologized extensively, admitted he was an idiot for believing Vanessa without verification, begged for another chance. I've refused all contact. He chose to believe my sister's fabricated evidence over my word. He married her 2 months after our breakup. Those aren't mistakes. They're choices that revealed who he is. Vanessa's reputation is destroyed. Everyone knows she fabricated infidelity evidence to steal her sister's fiancé. She's been cut off by several family members, lost most of her friends, became known as the sister who lied to steal a fiancé. She moved to another city, apparently couldn't handle the social consequences in our hometown. Last I heard, she's struggling professionally because the story spread through mutual professional networks. My parents blame me for Vanessa's downfall. Say that exposing her at the wedding was disproportionate revenge that destroyed her life. That I could have confronted her privately, could have exposed the lies without public humiliation at her wedding reception. Maybe they're right about the method. Playing that recording at her wedding was calculated to cause maximum humiliation. It wasn't just about truth, it was about punishment. But Vanessa fabricated evidence of infidelity, destroyed my engagement, stole my fiancé, and married him while maintaining her innocence. She was celebrating a marriage built on lies she'd told about me. The wedding seemed like the perfect moment to reveal the truth to everyone who believed her. My therapist asks whether I feel satisfied with the outcome. Honestly? Not really. Vanessa's life is damaged, my relationship with my parents is strained, and I still lost Marcus even though I was vindicated. But at least everyone knows the truth now. Vanessa's reputation for honesty is destroyed. Marcus knows he was manipulated. My name is cleared of the fake infidelity. Was the wedding reception exposure worth it? Some days I think yes. Vanessa deserved public consequences for public lies. Other days I think I just prolonged my own pain by staying focused on revenge instead of moving on. I'm 30 now, single, rebuilding trust after my sister's betrayal and my ex-fiancé's willingness to believe lies over me. Vanessa is divorced and relocated, living with consequences of fabricating evidence to steal a relationship. Marcus is still trying to contact me, still apologizing, still hoping for reconciliation. But you can't unring that bell. He believed I'd cheated based on easily fakeable screenshots and chose to marry my sister instead of fighting for our relationship. Some people think I should forgive him now that he knows the truth, that he was manipulated by Vanessa and deserves a second chance. But he was so quick to believe the worst of me, so ready to move on with Vanessa, so willing to marry her months after our breakup. Those aren't the actions of someone who actually loved me or trusted me. Vanessa's lies worked because Marcus was already predisposed to believe them. So, no reconciliation, no forgiveness for either of them. Just me, moving forward, having burned down my sister's wedding with the truth she'd tried to bury. Was it revenge? Absolutely. Was it justified? That depends on who you ask. What I know is Vanessa used lies to steal my fiancé and build a relationship. I used truth to destroy what she built, and I don't regret it. My mom's boyfriend convinced her I was on drugs to isolate her, so I got him arrested. I'm 27F, very close with my mom Linda, 51F, who raised me alone after my dad left when I was a baby. We've always had a tight bond, talked daily, saw each other multiple times a week, supported each other through everything. 2 years ago, Mom started dating Craig, 48 male. He seemed nice initially, but things changed quickly. Craig started suggesting Mom and I were too close, that our relationship was unhealthy codependency, that I was holding Mom back from fully committing to their relationship. Mom started becoming distant, canceled plans, stopped responding to texts promptly, made excuses about why we couldn't meet up. When we did see each other, Craig was always there, monitoring conversations, steering topics away from anything personal. Then last year, Mom confronted me about my drug problem. Said Craig had noticed signs, my weight loss, my erratic behavior, my financial struggles. Mom was crying, begging me to get help, saying Craig had experience with addiction and could tell I was using. I was completely blindsided. I don't use drugs, never have. The weight loss was from training for a half marathon. The erratic behavior was normal life stress. The financial struggles were student loans, not drug expenses. I denied everything, offered to take drug tests, showed Mom my bank statements proving I wasn't spending money on drugs. But Mom believed Craig over me. He'd been documenting my supposed addiction, misinterpreting normal texts, taking photos of me looking tired and claiming they showed drug use, building a false narrative. Craig convinced Mom I was in denial, that addicts always lie, that she needed to cut me off until I admitted my problem and got treatment. Mom stopped seeing me entirely, blocked my number at Craig's insistence, cut off all contact. I was devastated and confused. My mother, my best friend, completely cut me out of her life because her boyfriend fabricated a drug addiction. Then I discovered something. Craig had an outstanding warrant in another state for domestic violence and fraud. He'd been using a slightly different name with my mom to avoid detection. I reported him to police with his real name and location. Police arrested Craig at Mom's house. The warrant was for aggravated domestic violence against his ex-wife and financial fraud related to draining her accounts. He'd fled the state before trial, had been using variations of his name to avoid detection while starting relationships with vulnerable women. Exactly what he'd done with Mom. The arrest shook Mom out of Craig's manipulation. Once he was in custody, she started questioning everything he'd told her. His addiction expertise? He'd never worked in addiction treatment. Another lie. His concerns about me. All manipulation to isolate Mom from her support system. Mom was horrified when she realized Craig had fabricated my entire drug addiction to isolate her. She'd cut off her daughter based on lies from a man who was wanted for domestic violence and fraud. We reunited tearfully. Mom apologized extensively, said she couldn't believe she'd believed Craig over me, that his manipulation had been so gradual and convincing she hadn't realized what was happening. But Craig's family blames me for his arrest. They claim he was innocent of the domestic violence charges. He wasn't. He pleaded guilty. That I'd weaponized the legal system against him because I was jealous of his relationship with my mom. Craig's ex-wife contacted me to thank me for reporting him, said he'd used the same isolation tactics with her, convinced her that her family was toxic, that she had mental health issues they were exploiting, separated her from everyone who cared about her before the violence and financial abuse started. She said if I hadn't reported him, my mom might have ended up in the same situation she'd barely escaped. Craig was convicted on the original charges and received additional charges for using false identity to evade arrest. He's serving 4 to 6 years in prison. My mom is in therapy processing how completely she was manipulated. She's devastated that she chose Craig's lies over her relationship with me, that she was so convinced I had a drug problem that didn't exist. Some extended family members think I should have just waited for Mom to see through Craig naturally rather than reporting him to police. That involving law enforcement in a family relationship issue was extreme. But Craig wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He was a fugitive using my mom while isolating her from anyone who might recognize the danger she was in. 18 months later, Mom and I have rebuilt our relationship, though it's different now. There's a wariness that wasn't there before, a knowledge that she chose to believe lies about me, that she cut me off completely without hearing my side. Mom is genuinely remorseful, has worked hard in therapy to understand how Craig manipulated her. Her therapist says abusers target people's deepest fears. In Mom's case, her fear that she'd failed as a parent, that maybe I did have problems she'd missed. Craig used that fear masterfully. Every normal thing I did, he reframed as evidence of addiction. Every time I defended myself, he said that was addict behavior. He built a complete narrative that preyed on Mom's insecurities. Mom has apologized repeatedly, said she'll never forgive herself for believing Craig over me. But the trust between us was damaged. I understand intellectually that she was manipulated, but emotionally, part of me still can't believe my own mother blocked my number based on fabricated drug accusations. Craig's family still sends occasional hate mail saying I destroyed an innocent man's life by reporting old charges he was trying to move past. They insist the domestic violence was mutual. It wasn't, and that I was vindictive for involving police in what they frame as a personal relationship dispute. But Craig was a fugitive. He'd violently abused his ex-wife, defrauded her financially, then fled prosecution. He was doing the same isolation tactics with my mom. Reporting him wasn't revenge, it was protecting my mother from a dangerous man who'd already shown what he was capable of. Craig's ex-wife and I have become friends. She's shared details about his abuse that terrify me. If I hadn't reported him when I did, Mom might have experienced the same escalating violence and control. Some family friends think I overreacted, that reporting Craig to police over a relationship issue was extreme. They suggest I should have trusted Mom to figure it out, or been patient while Craig isolated her from everyone who cared about her. But Craig was wanted for violent crimes. His manipulation of my mom was following the exact pattern he'd used with his ex-wife before the abuse turned physical. I didn't overreact. I protected my mother from a violent fugitive. Mom agrees now. She's said multiple times that reporting Craig probably saved her life, that his isolation tactics were the beginning of an abusive pattern that would have escalated. But she also lives with guilt that she was so manipulated she cut off her own daughter, that she believed fabricated drug addiction accusations over my denials, that she chose a man she'd known 2 years over the daughter she'd raised for 27. I've forgiven her, mostly, but the hurt lingers. The knowledge that she was willing to believe the worst of me, to cut me off completely without demanding real proof, to prioritize a boyfriend's narrative over our lifetime relationship. We're rebuilding. It's slow. There's love, but also scar tissue. And I'm okay with that complexity. Grateful Mom is safe from Craig, grateful I reported him before the situation escalated, but also acknowledging that her choices during his manipulation hurt me profoundly. Craig serves his sentence for domestic violence and fraud. Mom rebuilds her life and our relationship. I live with the knowledge that reporting him was absolutely the right choice, even if some people will always think I should have stayed out of it. Because Craig wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He was a violent criminal using my mother, and I'd report him again without hesitation to keep her safe, regardless of who thinks that makes me vindictive or extreme. My mom is alive and free because I chose to protect her, even when she was too manipulated to protect herself. That's not revenge. That's love, complicated by betrayal, protection mixed with hurt, and the messy reality of saving someone who didn't believe they needed saving. My stepmom threw out my dead mother's belongings while I was at basic training, so I told my dad what really happened to his first wife. I'm 24 million, and my mom died when I was 9 in what everyone said was a tragic accident. She fell down the basement stairs while my dad was at work. My dad remarried Candace, 46-year-old female, a year later. Candace always treated my mom's memory like a threat, got uncomfortable when Dad or I talked about her. Before leaving for Army basic training at 18, I stored my most precious belongings at Dad's house. Photos of my mom, her jewelry she'd left me, her handwritten recipe book, letters she'd written me, her wedding dress I'd planned to give my future wife. Irreplaceable items that were my only tangible connection to her. Basic training is 10 weeks with no access to home. When I returned, everything was gone. Candace had cleaned out my room, threw away everything of my mother's. Said she thought it was old junk I didn't need anymore, that keeping a dead woman's belongings was unhealthy. She'd thrown away my mother's wedding dress, her handwritten recipes, letters in her handwriting, photos I could never replace. Everything. I was devastated and furious. My dad was upset but passive, said Candace had made a mistake but it was done, that I should try to forgive and move on. I couldn't forgive. These weren't replaceable items. They were all I had left of my mother. Candace had deliberately erased her from my life. Years later, I was visiting my grandmother, Mom's mother, when she mentioned something strange. The detective who'd investigated my mom's death had always been suspicious. The fall didn't quite match the injuries. There were inconsistencies in Candace's statement. She'd been at the house that morning, though she'd initially denied it. Candace had been dating my dad while my mom was still alive, was at the house the morning Mom died, and the detective had suspected foul play but couldn't prove it. I obtained the police report. The inconsistencies were documented. Candace's changing story, suspicious timing, injuries that didn't quite match a simple fall. I brought everything to my father and told him Candace might have been involved in my mother's death. My dad initially refused to believe it, said Candace couldn't have done anything, that the police had ruled it an accident, that I was letting grief and anger over the thrown-out belongings create conspiracy theories. But I showed him the police report. The detective's notes about inconsistencies in Candace's story. The timeline showing Candace was at our house that morning despite claiming she wasn't. The affair that had started before Mom died. The fact that Candace had motive. She wanted my dad, and my mom was in the way. Dad started asking questions. Why had Candace been at our house that morning? Why had she lied about it initially? What explained the detective's suspicions documented in official reports? Candace's explanations were weak. She'd forgotten being at the house. The affair had started after Mom's death. Records showed otherwise. The detective had been reaching with unfounded suspicions. My dad demanded the truth. Eventually, under pressure, Candace admitted she'd been at the house that morning, that she and Mom had argued about the affair, that Mom had been upset and angry. Candace claimed Mom's fall was still an accident, that Mom had been distressed during their confrontation, had stormed toward the basement still yelling, tripped, and fell. That Candace had panicked and fled rather than call for help immediately. But Dad didn't believe the tripped explanation anymore. Neither did I. The detective's original suspicions made sense. The injuries, the circumstances, the convenient timing for Candace to marry my dad a year later. Dad filed for divorce and contacted the police about reopening the investigation. With new information about Candace's lies and the confrontation she'd never disclosed, the case was re-examined. The investigation couldn't definitively prove murder after 15 years, but they determined Candace had lied to investigators, possibly interfered with the original investigation, and potentially was responsible for my mother's death through either direct action or failure to help. Candace was charged with obstruction of justice and providing false statements to police. The murder charge couldn't stick after so long, but she faced legal consequences for her lies during the original investigation. My dad was shattered. He'd married the woman who'd at minimum lied about his first wife's death, at maximum possibly killed her. He'd believed Candace's story for 15 years while his son grew up without a mother. My family is divided. Some think I was right to pursue the truth about Mom's death. Others think I reopened old wounds out of revenge for Candace throwing out Mom's belongings. 2 years later, Candace is divorced from my dad and finished serving 18 months for obstruction of justice. She can't be charged with murder because of evidence degradation and statute of limitations issues. But everyone knows she lied about my mother's death. My dad is in therapy, processing that he married someone who likely caused his first wife's death, whether through direct action or criminal negligence in not calling for help. He's guilt-ridden and broken. Candace's family blames me for destroying her life by bringing up a 15-year-old death she'd moved past. They say I created a murder narrative out of an accident because I was angry about belongings she'd thrown away. But Candace lied to police about being at our house the morning my mom died. She admitted to a confrontation she'd never disclosed. The detective suspected foul play from the beginning. I didn't create the narrative. I uncovered what had been hidden. Some extended family thinks I should have left it alone, that reopening the investigation didn't bring my mom back but did destroy my dad's second marriage and peace of mind. That I prioritized revenge over my father's well-being, but Dad deserved to know the truth about who he'd married. I deserved to know what really happened to my mother. And if Candace was responsible, whether through murder or negligent failure to help, she deserved consequences. My mom's case is officially unsolved. The truth died with the evidence that degraded over 15 years. But Candace's lies are proven. Her presence at the scene is confirmed, and the suspicious circumstances are documented. Did Candace push my mom down those stairs? I believe yes. Did she at minimum have a confrontation that led to Mom's fall and then flee instead of helping? She admitted that much. Either way, Candace was there when my mom died, lied about it for 15 years, married my dad while hiding her involvement, then threw away every belonging I had of my mother. I'm 26 now, estranged from Candace permanently, rebuilding my relationship with my dad as he processes the betrayal. My mother's belongings are gone forever. The truth about her death is incomplete. But Candace faced legal consequences for her lies, and Dad knows who he really married. Some will always think I pursued this out of revenge for thrown-out belongings, rather than genuine concern about my mother's death. Maybe both motivations coexisted. Fury over the belongings led me to investigate. Investigation revealed the truth about Mom's death. But the truth mattered, regardless of what motivated me to find it. Candace lied about being at our house when my mom died. She married my dad while hiding her involvement. She destroyed every memento I had of my mother. Those are facts, not revenge. Exposing them had consequences. Candace's conviction, Dad's trauma, family fracture. But the alternative was continuing to let Candace's lies stand, continuing to accept the accident story when evidence suggested otherwise. I chose truth over family peace. Candace chose lies over honesty. Dad chose to believe the truth over protecting his second marriage. We all made choices, and we're all living with consequences. My mother is still dead. I still don't have her belongings. But I know more about what happened to her, and Candace faced some accountability for her lies. In a case this old and complicated, that's as close to justice as we're likely to get. And I can live with that, even if it means living with family who thinks I destroyed Candace over thrown-out boxes when really I exposed lies about my mother's death. Their judgment doesn't change what Candace did or the truth I uncovered. That's enough. My uncle destroyed my college acceptance letters so I'd stay home, so I got him disbarred. I'm 20-year-ago female, first-generation college student from a tight-knit immigrant family. My uncle, Dimitri, 52-year-old male, is a lawyer who's been the family's pride, successful, respected, the one who made it in America. He's always been controlling about families staying together, very traditional about women's roles. Senior year of high school, I applied to universities across the country. I'd worked incredibly hard. 4.0 GPA, perfect test scores, leadership positions, and got accepted to multiple top schools including Yale with near full financial aid. Acceptance letters were mailed to my parents' house where I lived. I kept checking the mail obsessively, but nothing came. Called admissions offices asking about decisions, and they said letters had been sent weeks ago. Dimitri was visiting frequently during this time, often arriving before I got home from school. He'd offer to bring in the mail for my parents. After missing all response deadlines, I called universities frantically. They confirmed I'd been accepted, but hadn't responded to their offers. I'd missed enrollment deadlines at every school. My college opportunities were gone. I was devastated and confused. How had multiple acceptance letters all failed to arrive? I attended community college instead, living at home, which my family seemed relieved about. 2 years later, I was helping clean Dimitri's office after he'd mentioned downsizing. Found a folder labeled Family Documents containing my college acceptance letters, all of them. Yale, Stanford, Cornell, every school I'd applied to. He'd stolen them from my parents' mailbox and hidden them so I'd miss deadlines and stay local. Also in the folder, documents showing Dimitri had been embezzling from his law firm's client trust accounts for years. He'd been stealing money meant for client settlements and personal matters, hiding it through complex transfers. I confronted him about the letters. He said he'd done it for my own good, that college far from family would ruin me, that women from our culture should stay close to home, that he'd saved me from making a terrible mistake. I was furious. Then I remembered the embezzlement evidence I'd seen. I reported him to the State Bar Association with copies of the documents. The Bar Association investigation uncovered extensive financial crimes. Dimitri had embezzled over $400,000 from client trust accounts across 5 years. He'd hidden it through fake legal expenses and transfers to accounts under relatives' names, without their knowledge. The investigation also revealed he'd committed other ethical violations: forging client signatures, manipulating court documents, lying to courts about filing deadlines. Dmitry was disbarred, his law license revoked permanently. He was also charged criminally with embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. The firm he'd worked for was forced to compensate clients he'd stolen from. His career was destroyed completely. The family's success story became the family shame. Disbarred lawyer convicted of stealing from clients. My family was devastated and furious with me, not Dmitry. My parents said I'd destroyed their brother over old college letters, that Dmitry had been trying to protect me from making bad decisions, that reporting him to the bar was vindictive revenge that destroyed the entire family's reputation. Extended family blamed me for taking down the only successful member of our community, said I'd humiliated them all because I was bitter about missing college opportunities. Dmitry's wife called crying, said I'd destroyed her husband's career and their financial security over something that happened years ago. That Dmitry's concern for me, however misguided, didn't deserve having his embezzlement exposed. But Dmitry hadn't just stolen my acceptance letters. He'd been stealing from vulnerable clients for years. Immigrants like our family who trusted him with their legal matters, their settlements, their futures. One client he'd stolen from was a widow receiving a wrongful death settlement after her husband died in a workplace accident. Dmitry had taken $85,000 from her settlement, money meant to support her and her 3 children. Another was an elderly man whose medical malpractice settlement Dmitry had embezzled, leaving him unable to afford necessary care. These weren't just financial crimes. They were betrayals of the most vulnerable people in our community who'd trusted him. My reporting wasn't just revenge for stolen acceptance letters. It was exposing crimes that were actively harming people. But my family doesn't see it that way. They see a vindictive niece who destroyed their successful relative because she was angry about missing college opportunities. 18 months later, Dmitry is serving a 4-year prison sentence for embezzlement and fraud. His law career is over, permanently. Disbarment is irreversible. His reputation in our immigrant community is destroyed. The clients he stole from have been partially compensated through the firm's professional liability insurance and court-ordered restitution, though many will never recover the full amounts. My family has mostly cut me off. Parents speak to me minimally. Relatives don't invite me to gatherings. I'm the one who destroyed the family by reporting Dmitry. Dmitry's children, my cousins, won't speak to me. They've lost their father to prison and their financial stability to restitution payments. They blame me entirely for their family's collapse. Some community members have privately thanked me. People who'd been Dmitry's clients and suspected something wrong but were afraid to speak up against the successful lawyer. They say I was brave to report him despite family pressure. But others in the community see me as the ungrateful niece who destroyed the one person who'd made it, who'd been a source of pride for our immigrant community. I transferred to a good university using my community college credits. I'm studying law now, partially inspired by this experience, wanting to be the kind of lawyer Dmitry should have been. Dmitry sent a letter from prison saying I destroyed his life over college letters he'd hidden for my protection. That if I'd confronted him privately instead of reporting the embezzlement, we could have resolved the acceptance letters issue without destroying his career. But resolving the acceptance letters wouldn't have stopped him from stealing from clients, wouldn't have returned money to the widow or the elderly man or dozens of other people he'd defrauded. My reporting wasn't just about revenge for my stolen opportunities. It was about stopping ongoing crimes against vulnerable people. My therapist says I shouldn't carry guilt for Dmitry's consequences. He committed serious crimes. I reported them. His punishment is from his actions, not my report. But family says I could have confronted him privately about both the letters and the embezzlement, given him a chance to return the money and stop stealing without involving authorities. Maybe. But Dmitry had been stealing for years, had hidden my acceptance letters without remorse, had shown no intention of stopping or confessing to anything. Private confrontation would have just given him time to hide more evidence. I'm 22 now, in law school, estranged from most family. Dmitry is in prison, disbarred, paying restitution to clients he stole from. The family is fractured. Some think I did the right thing. Most think I destroyed Dmitry out of spite for old college rejections that were actually acceptances he hid. Did I report him partly because I was furious about the stolen letters? Yes. Did he also deserve reporting for embezzling from vulnerable clients? Also yes. Both motivations coexisted. The revenge for my stolen future and the justice for his theft from others weren't separate. They were intertwined in the moment I found those documents and chose to report. Some will always think I should have prioritized family loyalty over reporting crimes. But Dmitry prioritized his control over my future and his greed over clients' trust. I chose to expose both. And I'd do it again. Because I lost Yale and Stanford and my chance at the education I'd earned. But Dmitry's clients lost their settlements, their security, their trust. Stopping that mattered more than protecting family reputation. That's revenge and justice and truth all at once, and I'm living with it. In law school, estranged from family, knowing that Dmitry's in prison partly because I found evidence of his crimes while looking for my stolen acceptance letters. Life is messy that way, and I'm okay with the mess.